Turning them on, thanks.
Present.
Here.
Commissioner Sheets.
Here.
Commissioner Desayan.
Here.
Chairperson Kay.
Here, report regarding posting of agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Wednesday, January 12, 2011, on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the city's website.
All right, would everyone join or stand and please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Well, this is the time of year to elect a new chairperson. First, staff will ask for nominations. Commission members state their nominations. No second is required. Following all nominations, staff will then ask for a vote on the first nomination. If a majority vote is received, a new chairperson is elected. If not, staff repeats the procedure with the second commissioner member nominated. The process is repeated until a new chairperson is elected. Staff, please proceed with nominations.
Nominations are now in order. Are there any nominations for chairperson for Planning Commission?
I nominate Commissioner Bill Kane for chair. He did such a poor job last year. He needs to continue.
Give me another chance. All right.
Give him another chance.
We have a nomination for Bill Kane. Are there any further nominations?
I nominate Chang Lee.
We have a nomination for Chang Lee. Are there any further nominations?
Can I recuse? Fine.
You want to? Did you want to refuse the nomination?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Nope. If there are no further nominations, nominations are now closed. And we'll now ask for a vote on the first nomination. So we have our first nomination is for Bill Kane. We please have we'd ask for a vote for Bill Kane for chairperson.
Aye.
Commissioner Landrigan.
Aye.
There we go.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheets.
Aye.
Commissioner Desayan.
Aye.
Chairperson Kane.
Abstain. On a vote of 4-0, I have been reelected for chairman. I appreciate that very much. I will continue to improve, or work hard to improve. All right. We are going to be losing one of our commissioners at about 7 o'clock. As such, I'm going to move some of the agenda items to the end, things like approval of minutes, the continuation of one of the cases, and so on, so that we have every effort to be able to have him participate all the way through to the vote of the hearing. By the same token, we have a lot of cards. Everyone is entitled to speak. Certainly, you can take the full 3 minutes. Certainly, you can take the full 15 minutes as the applicant. But please realize that we may lose and be down to 4 members instead of 5 as the vote approaches. If that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes. But if everyone can be aware of the time and potentially allow us to have all 5 people, that would be appreciated. Okay, so that said, let's introduce the use variance case PVAR 2010-023 and standards variance case PVAR 2010-028 and environmental information form initial study PEIF 2010-011. The location is 444 Lowell Avenue. The applicant is Rodney Kahn of Kahn Consulting, and this is a project that involves the construction of a 9,345 square foot gymnasium up to 35 feet in height at an existing private school in the R1 low density residential zone floor area district 2 zone, where private schools are not a permitted use, described as Lot 1, Track 17100. The proposed gymnasium will result in a reconfiguration of an existing surface parking lot and an additional landscaping within this parking lot. The environmental PEIF 2010-011 is on file in the Planning Division. The recommendation from staff is to approve with conditions the variance case, the standards variance case, the use variance case, the standards variance case, and adopt the environmental information form. Staff is represented by Roger Keisel, and if you would give us an overview, please.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. The items before you this evening are a use variance case number PVAR 2010-023 and standards variance case number PVAR 2010-028. The project involves the construction of a proposed gymnasium at the Chamlian School located at 4444 Lowell Avenue. The project requires approval of a use variance because the proposed gymnasium is an expansion of a private school use, and private schools are not a permitted use in the R1 zone. Additionally, the project requires approval of a standards variance. The proposed gymnasium will be up to 35 feet in height, where a maximum of 25 feet for a flat roof structure is permitted in the R1 zone. And the site will exceed the maximum floor area ratio standard. The site will contain 54,486 square feet of floor area, where a maximum of 22,994 square feet is allowed. The site already exceeds the maximum floor area ratio without the proposed gym. The project before you this evening is a use and standards variance. For your information, the applicants have also applied for a parking reduction permit because, as proposed, the project does not provide the minimum number of parking spaces. This public hearing will take place before the planning hearing officer. No date has been set for this hearing, or that hearing. And additionally, the project will require approval from the Design Review Board. The subject site is currently developed as the private Chamlian School and is relatively flat, although it slopes steeply in the northern and southern areas of the site. The majority of the existing buildings are located in the western and northern portions of the site. An outdoor playground is located in the southern portion of the site. Staff parking is located in the eastern area. And there is a driveway access from Lowell Avenue, which is used for drop-off and pickup of students attending the school. There's a long driveway located adjacent to the northern property line. There's also an existing driveway from the staff parking lot in the eastern portion of the site to 2nd Avenue. This area is currently gated and locked, and no operational changes to this area are proposed as a result of this project. The proposed gymnasium will be located in the eastern portion of the site and will require the reconfiguration of the parking lot used by staff of the school. Approval of the use and standards variance requires that 4 findings of fact can be made, and staff believes that these findings can be made in the affirmative. And I'll go over the findings. Strictly applying the provisions of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship, inconsistent with the purposes and intent of the ordinance. As I mentioned, the school is in an R1 zone, which allows single-family residential uses and other mostly residential uses. These uses are very limited because the primary intent of this zone is for development of traditional low-density residential uses and to protect this type of use from excessive noise, traffic, pollution, and other impacts. The subject site was developed as a school in the early 1960s and has been a school since that time. Currently, athletic activities occurring in the school take place on the playground located in the southern portion of the project, or of the site. And due to the location of the proposed gymnasium, the resulting reconfiguration of the rear parking lot, or the staff parking lot, the playground will be located further away from the single-family houses east and southeast of the site, thus reducing some of any current noise impact from outside play. Additionally, after construction of the project, certain sports activities which now would normally take place outside on the playground may actually occur inside the gymnasium, which will also reduce noise impacts. The proposed project will not result in significant additional traffic on streets in the area. Lowell Avenue is a minor arterial street and will continue to provide access to the staff parking lot. The existing driveway leading to the parking lot to Second Avenue, as I mentioned before, will remain gated and locked. The gymnasium will not generate air pollution. It would be an unnecessary hardship to deny the construction of the proposed gym, given that the school has been located on the site, that a school has been located on the site for the past 50 years, that the project is an amenity to the existing school and will not increase student enrollment, and will comply with the intent of the R1 zone. Strictly applying the maximum height and FAR standards to the proposed project will result in practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship. The purpose of maximum height standards in the R1 zone is to prevent excessive shade and shadow from being cast on adjacent properties and to allow for air movement and privacy. The purpose of the FAR standard in this zone is to regulate the mass and bulk of buildings. The proposed gym is located in the northeast portion of the project site, approximately 30 feet from the northern property line, 45 feet from the eastern property line, and 108 feet from the southern property line. The surrounding area is terraced. The neighborhood is terraced. And property immediately north of the project site, the commercially zoned area on Foothill is at a much higher elevation, while the properties south and east are at a lower elevation than the school site. While the gym is proposed to be up to 35 feet high, the setbacks of the building from the property lines, as well as the topography of the neighborhood, will prevent shade and shadow concerns and will allow for privacy and air movement. The proposed gymnasium includes an approximately 8,000 square foot sports court. There's a reference manual called Time Saver Standards for Building Types that architects use when designing various types of buildings, including gymnasiums. And this reference guide recommends a minimum clear height of 24 feet for gymnasiums. Mechanical equipment for heating and cooling and a parapet also need to be accommodated within the overall height limit. Initially, the variance request that the applicant submitted was for 30 feet in height, and upon planning staff's recommendation, the variance request was increased to 35 feet in height. Staff was concerned that the initially proposed 30-foot variance request may not be feasible when construction drawings were produced, and there was also a desire to allow some design flexibility with the appearance of the gym. So that's why the variance request went from 30 to 35 feet. The proposed gymnasium is a reasonable amenity to the existing private school and could not be constructed within the 25-foot height limit of the R1 zone, given the recognized standards and design and building requirements. The site is 4.59 acres and currently contains 45,000 square feet of floor area, which is roughly about double what would otherwise be allowed. The proposed gymnasium will add approximately 20% floor area to the site. While the proposed gymnasium will increase the amount of floor area, because of the size of the subject site, the building setbacks and the neighborhood topography, mass and scale of the gymnasium is appropriate for the site and should not overwhelm the neighborhood. The site could reasonably be subdivided into lots for single-family residential development since it's an R1 zone. And given the city's development standards, the subject site theoretically could be subdivided into about 17 lots. And those lots would have an average size of approximately 9,000 square feet. FAR District 2 standards would allow a maximum of approximately 61,000 square feet of floor area to be developed for residential use on the subject site, which is slightly more than the floor area now proposed if theoretically the site was subdivided and constructed with single-family houses. Again, the time saver standard for building types contains, that reference contains a standard floor plan for a gymnasium. And this standard gymnasium is approximately 11,000 square feet in area, and contains a sports court, lobby, 2 locker rooms, exercise room, bathrooms, laundry facilities, storage area. The proposed gymnasium is approximately 9,300 square feet in area and appears to be the minimum size to provide the regulation size basketball court, modest bathrooms, and the minimum amount of facilities necessary. There are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property or to the intended use or development of the property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone or neighborhood. As I mentioned before, the site has contained a school for about 50 years. The subject site is zoned R1, and it is unique to have a private school located in the R1 zone. The area's topography and the very large size of the site allow normally prohibited uses to operate with fewer impacts in close proximity to houses. These facts are the exceptional circumstances regarding the site which warrant granting the use variance. A gymnasium is a logical amenity for a school. Gymnasiums require certain minimum height and size standards in order to function. The proposed gymnasium is designed to 35 feet high, up to 35 feet in height, and 9,300 square feet in area, which is near the minimum height and size necessary to provide its functionality. The proposed gym is a reasonable amenity to the longstanding school use, and this gymnasium is planned at, or near, I should say, the minimum height and size to function. And these are the exceptional circumstances which warrant granting the standards variances. Granting of the variances would not be material detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to properties or improvements in such zone or neighborhood. The subject site has contained a school since 1960. In 1983, a conditional use permit was granted to establish a private school at the site, and since that time, a number of conditional use permits and variances have been granted to allow changes to the use and its continued operation. The police department cited traffic and parking concerns regarding the application, and the Neighborhood Services Division, while it does not have open code violations on the property, did cite concerns regarding the lack of parking for the proposed project. Planning staff does not believe that the proposed project will result in significant traffic or parking-related concerns as a result of the project. Lowell Avenue carries approximately 15,000 vehicles per day, which is much less than the 30,000 vehicles per day that minor arterial streets are designed to accommodate. When used during normal school hours, the gym will not generate additional traffic since the project is not proposing an increase in student enrollment. Many activities that could take place at the proposed gymnasium already do take place there. The applicant has provided a list of the activities ranging from scholastic book sales up to parent back-to-school nights and sports tournaments and stuff that already take place at the school. The applicant also has submitted parking plans that show a reasonable parking layout for temporary parking on the playground to accommodate 100 additional cars in addition to the 61 parking spaces that will be on the site now. This is more than the 147 spaces that would be required for the school with the gymnasium had this been a totally new project. There is a condition that staff is proposing that requires the applicant to provide a parking attendant to direct cars to the existing surface parking lot and the temporary parking lot when events are scheduled at the school, and I'll go over that more later. And then while the existing situation as described in the Police Department and Neighborhood Services Division comments present difficulties, the school has worked with our Traffic and Transportation Division to reduce impacts to Lowell Avenue as much as possible. The neighborhood surrounding the subject site has been developed for many years. Therefore, the proposed project will not impact development of the neighborhood. It's already developed. Given the location of the proposed gymnasium and the topography of the surrounding area, the project will have limited visibility and should not exacerbate noise, create shade or shadow, or generate privacy concerns in the residential neighborhood. The granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance, and I think I've already gone through that previously, so I won't do that again. Mitigated negative declaration 2010-011 was prepared for the project and made available for a 20-day comment period. The mitigated neg deck contained one mitigation measure, which staff would like to sort of make more specific. I guess that's the best phrase to use that I'll go over. Finally, a number of emails and letters were received in opposition of the project. Some of these letters, you got the packet just before the meeting. The first 3 or 4 of the letters were a result of there was a neighborhood meeting that took place in January of last summer, or I'm sorry, July of last year, prior to formal submittal of the project. So I've included those letters, and then the letters beyond that were a result of project notification to the surrounding property owners. I should have done this in the beginning of the presentation. The materials for the project are all behind you. This is the site plan. Lowell Avenue is here. Development is here. The gym will be here, and reconfigured parking is approximately how the site looks today. This is they hike the 35 feet, although they are still working on a design to be to the design review. So that's this. Actually, a little plan of the temporary parking that extends this driveway and that can.
That would be for outside of school hours?
Yes, yeah. It would be when staff is proposing when there is an activity, a special event on the site, like a sports tournament, parent sorts of photos, just a location map. The applicants have provided, well, they're sections, but they're views. I forget what they're called. Right, line of sight views. So, section is taken from Abella. So, a house on Abella, their line of sight would go up this way. The property lines are here. As I mentioned, the subject site slopes right adjacent to the northern and southern property lines. That's here. This is planted. The gym is back. And then this section taken from 2nd Avenue. There's a cul-de-sac right here, and so the line of sight was taken here. Again, it steeps up, or it slopes up a little bit. There's landscaping. I believe that is all I had to say. So I'll conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Lee?
On the report, you have a history of this project. March 25th, 1992, use on standard variance. What was the number of reduced parking that was granted?
In 1992?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I can suggest there are 8 or 9 of these discretionary permits.
55
ask-
versus 700 parking required. That's what it said.
Is that what it says?
What it says in there, I wrote it down.
Are you how many? 700.
The parking
if it was-
requirements are different now. Maybe what I can do is write down questions, and then as you're hearing other people, I can get the answers.
What is the maximum occupancy of the gymnasium?
I'm sorry?
Occupancy of the gymnasium?
The maximum, how many people maximum can fit in there?
Yes.
That I don't know. We can check.
Don't we usually have that when we build gymnasiums like that? For the games or for the events that you...
Well, there are, building and safety has like occupancy standards.
The reason that I'm asking is that, the number of people who will be coming to the events.
Right.
Okay, and you use the, in one of the paragraphs here to explain the FAR, and you use a comparison of actually dividing the lot into a R1 lots and then coming up with, a justifiable number for the FAR here. Is that normally done like that, comparing apples and oranges?
Well, I haven't seen anybody do it here. I was curious to see, okay, this is a residential site, and it was fairly easy to do a theoretical subdivision. I didn't spend a whole bunch of time making sure, each lot was 9,000 square feet and doing that, but, it was fairly rough calculations. I guess that's how I'd answer the
And
question.
one of the reports that I read through, the neighborhood services makes that comment also, and also there's a police remarks about the traffic concerns. But one of them, the remarks does address parking structure. I'm assuming that maybe subterranean parking structure, because you already have a 10,000 square foot footprint there that you can probably build underneath to alleviate some of the parking concerns here.
Sure.
Has that been considered? Has that been looked at?
It hasn't been pursued based on applicant and staff speaking on the temporary parking lot over the gymnasium, and requiring a structure or underground parking would bring other impacts to the neighborhood, and we felt that this solution, the temporary parking, was better suited.
So what is the final number of the parking that you're proposing here versus what was there before?
Currently, there are 59 parking spaces on the site,
Okay.
and that includes 4 in the drop-off pickup area. There are 4 on the western portion of the site, and then 51 in the eastern portion of the site.
The new proposed parking space?
The new proposed will have the same 8 in the front, and then 2 additional in the back. So 53, 53 in the back, 53 parking spaces in the back as opposed to 51.
So we have net increase of 2 parking spaces?
You have an increase of 2 parking permanent, and then as staff is proposing as a condition, the temporary parking over the playground of 100 spaces.
I noticed that, and then, but that was a comment I was going to make, but on the conditions that you put down, you really don't have that as a condition also, so you might want to consider that later on.
Okay.
Because you do mention it in your report, but it's not part of the conditions. That's it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions at this moment from commissioners? After the applicants had their initial presentation, I'd like to have you go through the current conditions that are in place and give us a status in terms of how well staff feels they've been complying with them. Student counts, information that they're supposed to provide, I believe it was like every 2 months, just all the type of things that they're supposed to be doing and whether or not they've been doing it.
Okay.
And we'll do that following the applicant's presentation, which will also give them the opportunity during rebuttal to comment on whatever you might share, okay?
Okay.
I would add to that, if it doesn't already include it, of all of the list of requests and renewals, it seemed to me that the conditions kind of fluctuated or varied as far as what parking, the pickup and drop-off standards were, what the requirements were of the staff, what the requirements were of the parents, and what the plan was as far as how they would drop off and pick up and direct the traffic flow and traffic management.
Yeah.
I want to know what that is today,
Okay.
because that, I'm not sure. It's varied, it's changed, it's adjusted, and it became vague, so I want to know what the standards are today.
Okay.
Ms. Landergan.
This may be saying what Mr. Sheets is saying, but there have been so many parking reductions and a continuation of reductions with the addition of square footages. I would like to know what this existing square footage should park if there were no reductions at all.
Oh, what it should, okay, a new...
All of these square footages here and all of these uses, what would the parking requirement be with no reductions?
Okay, if,
And it's not 161.
right, it's actually less.
147.
Right, yeah. If this site were scraped and...
No. I don't want it scraped. Every building here has a parking required number.
Okay,
And there's been a reduction every time a new one is here, or a continuation of the reduction. So, if all this square footage and use was there, what is the total parking is required?
147.
But I can't believe that.
Okay,
So you got to show me that,
okay, that's fine.
because it doesn't add up from everything else I've looked at here. So
Okay.
if you could show me where that is, I'd really appreciate
Sure.
it. And maybe you can't do that right now, but
Okay.
Anything else for now? All right, we'll let the applicant come forward. Mr. Khan, you and the other project applicant, if you will, have a combined 15 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Here in the city of Glendale.
You're on.
Right, I'm on? Okay, as long as I'm on. To summarize and to add to Roger's staff report, the main purpose for this new gymnasium facility is when it is very hot, or when it's very cold, or when it's raining outside, that the children, the students, have somewhere to do physical activities and exercise. And basically what we're doing is we're taking an outdoor basketball court and creating an indoor sports court. We would use this gymnasium like other schools use their gymnasiums for basketball, for volleyball, for indoor soccer. A complete list of these activities we provided with our original request. It's mentioned that there were previous discretionary applications that have been granted, and they have, since 1983, when the Shamlian Armenian School purchased this school from Glendale Unified. It was Lowell Avenue Elementary School when it was constructed, a public school. And doing so, they built this facility in the R1 zone with this layout on this site. A couple things I want to emphasize. This new facility will not change the number of students currently at the school. It will not change the number of grades that are being offered. It's not going to change access or the limited access, which is off of 2nd Avenue. It will maintain and will not change the phase schedule. What will it change? What will it change? It will upgrade this campus, and it will provide a well-deserved amenity to the children that go to this school from our community. Roger mentioned we held a community meeting back in July of 2010. We did. We sent out 159 letters to property owners within a 500-foot radius. We asked them to come to the campus. We gave a presentation. We walked the campus. We walked over to the location where the new facility would be. We had it taped out. We came back to the auditorium, and we listened to comments, and we answered questions. We had 7 people from the community attend. There were 2 major comments that were mentioned. One was 2nd Avenue. It was very, very, very emphatically stated to us that they did not want to see that the access, which was previously provided years ago, exit with the cars onto 2nd Avenue. We are not doing that. The second item, and it was added to by the staff and after the meeting as well, we had striped the location of the gymnasium further south on the campus, closer to the single-family residential to the south. And it was asked of us, could you consider shifting the location of this further north? Because north of us is commercial storage and shopping center, and they wouldn't be as impacted as to the properties to the south. And we said, yes, we would. So we shifted it to what you see today, which is 60 feet further north. And that helped us in a couple different ways. That helped us, one, address that issue, but it also helped us in terms of the relayout or recirculation of the parking. It actually is more efficient and effective now than it currently is. We were able to get a little bit more landscaping, and we were able to have, once again, that circulation pattern where if we needed to have any overflow parking on the playground, it was much more easily and accessible from a traffic perspective on site than if we had had the gymnasium to the south. Roger spoke about the setbacks. We are approximately 108 feet back, setback from the property, single family, to the south. To the east, we're approximately 45 feet, and to the north, which is the commercial and commercial wall, we're about 30 feet. So there's ample setbacks for air, light, ventilation as it relates to this structure. What I'd like to do is, I'm not going to be redundant and repeat all of the findings that Roger did from a time perspective, but I would like to touch on a few of them, and I'll combine them because we're looking at the 3 items. One is the modification to the use variance. So the use variance, the most recent one, was granted in 2008 and ran to 2020. The reason we're here this evening, obviously, we're adding a new facility, thus requires a new use variance. The second related to height, and I think Roger touched upon that. We went in and said we're going to do the minimum height possible or feasible, which is actually, if you go out to the facility and you look at the building that's closest to this new structure, we're about at the same height as it currently is. So we met with staff. They said for some design enhancements, if we wanted you to vary the roof, you're going to need to add a few more feet to that. Thus, we changed it from the 30 feet, which matches the height of the building next to it, to approximately 35 feet. And as Roger said, a work in progress how that's going to vary. And then lastly, the floor area ratio. Briefly, the strict application of the provisions of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. As was mentioned, it's a very large site. It's a little under 200,000 square feet. We have 328 feet of frontage along Lowell Avenue. For the past 28 years, 27 years going on 28 now. The Shamlian Armenian School has built up and established a very strong student base and is very well respected in the academic community. The school has a very good reputation and is a fully accredited institution with 500 students in grades 1 through 8. The school is very active in the community. They have different food drives, serving the homeless, visiting the elderly. They have a number of activities. They encourage their students to participate in the community. The proposed gymnasium facility will not be leased out. It will not be rented out. It is specifically for the students that are currently or that will come to this facility. That's it. For the parents, for the faculty, and for the children at this facility. Other than the use, which I just talked about, the other code modifications, the 35 feet in height, I talked about it not having an impact on the surrounding community. You can see from the line of sight drawings, if you also had an opportunity to go out there, you can see off of 2nd Avenue, it's very, very heavily landscaped. You can see that from the photos. You also have that from Abella to the south as well. So in terms of the structure itself, it will be very well set back. It will be very well in terms of the landscaping from the surrounding area and will not have a visual impact on the community. The lot size, it was mentioned, and there was some discussion back and forth about the floor area ratio and the breakdown and how that worked. Basically, as it relates to the floor area ratio, the standard is in effect for really the single-family residential zone. This is a single-family residential zone, but it's not a single-family house. It's an academic institution. So there lies the discrepancy or difference, specifically as it relates to floor area. All the other development standards will be sufficient from setbacks, for air, light, and open space, traffic circulation, etc. As concluded in the previous approvals, the facilities on this property are designed specifically for school use and have been school use since 1960. The code intends to promote a reasonable development and use of the property and to deny the request to allow this new gymnasium facility would unduly restrict the flexibility of the school to upgrade and improve its campus. The second item, and I'll be a little briefer and quicker with the next three, there are exceptional circumstances or conditions to the property involved that do not apply to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. Actually, it doesn't apply to any other property in the city of Glendale. It's a very unique school. The school itself, the way it operates, the institution, it challenges its students to achieve their goals. This is a one-of-a-kind school. It plays a significant role in our community. That's one thing. The other thing is the large size. It's a very large size R1 zoned property that's been used as a school for 50 years. It's a very unique condition. There's nothing like it in the same zone or neighborhood. The granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare, interest to the property, or improvements in such zone or neighborhood. The new facility has been designed to serve the students, parents, and facilities of the school. So basically what you're looking at, there was an issue or a question about the parking. Parking, typically what the code does is it looks at the square footage of a building and says, you need this number of parking spaces because of this use. Well, in this condition, or in this situation, the same children will be coming there, the same parents will be coming there, the same teachers will be coming there, and the parking that currently exists right now is sufficient for that. So all you're doing, once again, is you're taking an outdoor court and you're making it an indoor court. The last item, the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. The use part is a modification to the previously approved use variance that will continue to allow the educational needs of the community. And the granting of the variances for the height and the floor area ratio promotes the greater good of encouraging the presence of education and academic schools for the many benefits they provide. When viewed in the larger perspective, the grant of these variances are reasonable and upholding the zoning ordinance as a flexible and sensible document. I'll conclude on a few remarks. We worked closely with the city staff. We reached out to the community. The feedback that we got from them is whatever we could provide and they gave us, we listened to. We have reviewed the suggested conditions of approval and the mitigation measure and agree to comply with all of them. And I'll conclude on this, and I feel this very strongly. I am very proud. I'm very proud to be working with the Shamlian School. I think it's a very professionally run facility. I think they have very dedicated parents and teachers, and I think they're a real asset to our community. I'll conclude my remarks. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Lee.
Mr. Khan, I'm going to pose the same question to you. Because, at the end of the day, when I look at this thing, we have almost 10,000 square foot increase, development here, and then you have a net increase of 2 parking spaces. And you say, the number of students stay the same, faculty stays the same, everybody stays the same. Now, is it safe to assume that once you have the gymnasium, that you will have activities inside the gymnasium, that you'll have some sports events, some competitions, and so on, either increase the use of the gymnasium to attract parents to come and occupy the gymnasium. Now, I'm looking at your 5-step bleacher here. It's part of your design. They're 27-foot long, 15-foot, 15-foot, and 27-foot long. I do rough calculation, and you're going to have anywhere from 160 to 200 people sitting on the bleacher. Now, if you're telling me that that's not going to load up the streets or load up the parking requirements surrounding the school, I shouldn't be sitting here. I was looking at the report and all that. I was really trying to find the argument or the justification for allowing this project to happen. Convinced me, because I agree, this is a good amenity. Provide the shelter, for the students, improve the school. I agree with all that. But I really do have a problem with your parking, shortages here and parking reduction. And because I really do believe that once the gymnasium goes in there, that you will have really intensified and increased use of the facility, which will have a detrimental effect in the surrounding neighborhood. So did you consider, I guess my question is, did you consider, I know, there's a financial burden on the school. You have a 10,000 square foot facility that you're building on anyways. And on the same footprint, I asked a question. Did you consider, what kind of hardship is there other than the financial hardship for you to go underground to provide some parking structures?
I'm trying to remember the entire question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask you to repeat it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Really, a few things at work here. One is any type of parking structure, whether it's subterranean parking structure or above-ground parking structure, the only location it could be is on the east side of the campus. Okay? The only circulation that would work is to come in off of 2nd Avenue. There is an issue with that I'm sure the neighbors will bring up. That is one piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle, and I'm trying to best convey this, and maybe I'm not doing a great job, but when we sat down and talked with traffic and transportation, when we talked with planning, the reason that they're recommending approval, there's a reason they're recommending approval. They did the research. They did the analysis. We don't see, or we are not looking at having a number of sporting events that's going to generate traffic and parking. We're not looking for that type of use or need at this facility. The other thing, too, is when there are events, when this is being used, the rest of the school would not be open. So you would not have this competing or conflicting condition where if there's parking on site, the school is being conducted, there's all that parking taken up, and there's nowhere, if some parents want to come and watch their children play, that they wouldn't have anywhere to park. They very much would have places to park.
I guess the question is, what would be the maximum? Do you know the maximum amount of people that would be allowed at the gym outside of the hours? And would the temporary parking that would be available for those events be sufficient?
Commissioner, in terms of our discussion, one of the things we did was last week we met as a committee, as a board. I met with them. Last night we met in preparation for this hearing. And it's very clearly stated to me in terms of the use for this gymnasium is for the students there. It's not for other schools to come use. It's not for outside agencies or organizations to come rent or anything like that. It's just for them. I could defer to the principal, but we're not talking large numbers at all. We're talking, in fact, very small numbers as to who would be using that gym, who would be coming and watching. The on-site parking would more than easily accommodate the parents coming to watch their children play.
Ms. Landergren.
Mr. Khan, thank you. What would the fire department say the capacity was for a gymnasium of this size?
I don't know. I would have to ask the fire department.
I would think that would be a good number to know when you're thinking in terms of parking this. Because nobody's giving us a number for what the city says the parking requirement for the square footage of a gymnasium is. So to me, it's leaving us without a vital piece of information for us to make a decision. I mean, if you want to come back over and over, that's fine, but I think some of these calculations aren't here for us to deliberate intelligently.
I guess if there was someone from the fire department we could ask that question of, or if that's a requirement for us to provide, we would have been happy to do it. We don't want to come back and forth either.
No, I know you don't, and
So if
we
there,
don't want you to have
yeah,
to
if
either.
there's
I don't-
questions you guys had or the staff had, we'd be happy to provide the answers. But I can't randomly just throw out a number saying this is what the fire department would require.
Let me interject. I'm looking at the fire department comments, and they don't, maximum occupancy not to exceed, and then it says to be decided.
Yes.
Yeah. So, other than that, it looks like most of their comments were standard comments. So, we can certainly talk to the fire department as well as building and safety to get, okay, we have a gym of 9,300 square feet where the sports court is 8,000 and the bathroom is this. What's the occupancy load? We can get that information. We don't have it now.
Mr. Sheets?
Yeah, Mr. Khan. I haven't heard anything in your representation of concerns, I mean, other than the meeting you had. You said there were two issues. Are you aware, or is the school aware, that there have been complaints in the neighborhoods of parking and double parking and blocking driveways? And the information I was given sounds like there are numerous times that this occurs, and it's kind of reached a point where maybe, at least from their perception, that nothing's being done. There's no follow-through. I mean,
Commissioner Sheets, yes. The school is very much aware because those same neighbors, or some of them, have either spoken to the school directly or contacted the police department as it relates to concerns. There is, and it can be further elaborated on, there is an ongoing traffic, I'll call it a traffic safety and improvement plan that's taking place at this campus. Okay? And They and the police department's been involved. Traffic and transportation has been involved. There's a panel from the school itself that's involved. That they take this. And when we talked with traffic, and I think Mr. Bagdanian's here as well, he can speak for himself, one of the things that happens at any school in the city of Glendale, when it's drop-off time or it's pickup time, it's chaotic. How do you organize that chaos? I take my daughter to Rosemont Junior High. I tell you what, Shamlian School does a far, far better job than Rosemont Junior High does. So to point the finger and say, oh, there's only problems there, that's wrong. Have they tried to address them? Yes. Do they continue to address them? Absolutely.
Flannery.
Mr. Khan, the building solution of putting the mechanical on top of the building is not always typical. It can be put on the side. There can be mechanical rooms. Sometimes cost is the solution to this. Were there other solutions proposed, and are they available if the height variance is considered excessive?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, at least. And this may have to be directed to someone from the school. Do you know what the current class or the number of students is?
500.
They're maxed out.
I believe so.
And how many in 7th grade?
I'm going to...
Okay. Followed by how many in 8th grade?
I've got that information.
I'll defer that.
You do? All right. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
500 in 7th grade, 44, in 8th grade, 42.
Okay. And when they have back-to-school nights or any of the various things they have, whatever program it is that extends into the evening, what have they been using? The multi-purpose room to this point?
I believe there's an auditorium that if you've been on campus, they use. But I think for back-to-school nights, it's the different classrooms as well. So you go to see who your child's teacher is, different things like that. And there's actually two back-to-school nights that happen in September. That's the main extracurricular event that takes place.
All right. So you opened your remarks by noting quite strongly that this is for the children, that it's to get them out of the rain, get them out of the heat, to provide them shelter during the school day.
Yes, I did.
So that said, I'm presuming that you're not against conditions that would severely restrict the use of that building after school hours, since it was only to shelter the children.
Chairman Kane, I would have to know what severely restrict implies.
Fair enough.
Before I would agree with
somewhat
anything.
restrict.
Before I would agree with anything.
Yeah, and I don't know what that would be either. Yeah.
It
Severely
sounded
may
good,
not be the best word.
Sounded good.
Somewhat. Yeah. And we'll explore that, I'm sure, as the evening goes on. There may be other questions we'll have as it pops up. We have a lot of, obviously, cards, but unless there's something else, we'll move on to the next
Not right
portion
now.
of the hearing.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much, though.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I want to go back to staff before we have cards, and I do know that we have a police officer. I don't know if you're here to maintain order or if you're here to... We have an unruly bunch, I know. And I don't know if it implies anything that you're with this part of the crowd, but... Yeah.
No, I just happened to come in at the last minute. No, I'm here to oversee and provide if there's any
Well, and that's, I guess this is the point where if there's other members of the city staff, whether it be neighborhood services or police, that did want to speak, because I can't tell who's sitting out there, this would be a time for them to come forward. And I'll suggest that at this moment you do, and then we'll have you follow. All right.
Sure, I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, well, stand by. Stand by. Thank you to identify that you are here. Please, officer.
Commissioner and council and citizens.
You gave us a promotion just now.
My input here is only to address the issues that the police department's aware of. The traffic that's been brought up here that I'm sure, and from listening to your comments, you're concerned with, is an ongoing issue. It's an ongoing issue at this school, like it is at most of every school that we have in the city. Those problems that recur daily at drop-off in the afternoons, or the things that we continue to address, get complaints from citizens. And we work as much as we can with the schools to try and alleviate some of those problems, and some of them are just chaotic. We try and control, and I would agree with that. As far as any direct input on the new construction, the only thing that the police department's position would be is increased traffic and complaints from the neighbors. As far as anything that's contained inside the facility and any uses that they have, we wouldn't have much impact and don't anticipate that we would have much impact. So it would just be the community and the traffic conditions. And if someone had questions specifically, I can answer, or I was just looking to hear what the community had to say and any input that I might have.
All right, Ms. Landergren.
Officer, have you had, and we don't have any of the records here, so, and this is off the top of your head, but the evening events that have been there, have there been recorded complaints during evening events, or are they mostly during the dropping off and picking up of students?
My experience is that the majority of the complaints from the neighbors and the sources for us to be out there are the regular routine drop-off in the morning and pick-up in the afternoon, the congestion, the violations that occur there associated with that.
Have there been any issues that you're aware of where events run well past 10 o'clock at night?
None that I have personal knowledge of at all.
Just was curious why you were here. Any other questions at this time? All right, thank you very much. And is it officer, or do you have a...
Officer Bateman.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
All right.
Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, first identify yourself for the record.
Sorry, John O'Bagdinian, Traffic Transportation Administrator.
Okay, well, let's, any remarks at all based on what the neighborhood has been stating, what the school has been doing?
Essentially, I know the Chamberlain School for the last 20 years. Similar to every school, 32 schools in Glendale, public or private, their pickup, drop-off, traffic issues around the school during the hours of in the morning and the afternoon are all very similar. I have to say that Chamberlain School has worked very closely with the city as it relates to traffic issues. So if there's anything we require them to do, they've complied with it. Again, we have a lot of limitation because of the physical location of the school. There's only one access on Lowell Street, and it's a drive-through. That's the only way they can pick up and drop off. The queues that generated because of the pick-up and drop-off in the morning when they're dropping off kids go south of the driveway on Lowell. It does block the driveways of the residents on the east side of Lowell Street. There's nothing else you can do to mitigate that, unless there was a parking lot or a larger area where they would drive through. If they drive through into the school grounds, it's a very narrow driveway that leads you to the back where that proposed gymnasium is. And it's only a single-lane driveway. We've looked at that in the past to see if there's anything else can be done. Given the location of the building, you cannot have a two-way traffic, even if they were agreeable to do the pick-up and drop-off on the school side. We did look at the access from the 2nd Street in the past, part of the Transportation Parking Commission. Some of the members looked at it, suggested that. Again, the residents on 2nd Street are concerned about that, and they would like to have it closed, so that has always remained closed. We worked with the residents recently, try to address some of the speeding issues that have happened in the neighborhood on 2nd Street, on Abella, on Community, installed a four-way stop at Community and 4th Street. We've done traffic counts and measurements. Things have not necessarily changed in terms of the speeds or the volumes. They're very, very consistent overall. And that's basically the picture I can give you as far as my involvement with staff from traffic, working with the police department. On an annual basis, part of the back-to-school night, traffic engineering and police, we go to the school. We've asked the parents to comply with all the rules and regulation and, have a traffic management plan, comply with that. That's basically what has been transpiring in that school area.
All right, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, with all the schools you mentioned that, we have, the traffic issues, and we're not really talking about that here. We're trying to address what this gymnasium will have, what type of effect it'll have when it's in use. Your experience with other schools with the gymnasium, when they have sports events and other events in the evening. Right now, they don't have gymnasium, so they don't have evening events. But when your observation, your experience, when other schools do have, let's say, basketball games, whatever games, what time do they usually end? What time does traffic from that, school, that game, spill out on the street?
My kids went to a similar private school. When I say private school, just very similar to
Well,
Champaign.
public school doesn't matter.
Or public school. When you have in the 7th, 8th grade tournaments, so to speak, usually my experience, like 4 teams tournaments that they would have, let's say all the parents come at the same time. You have about 40 kids playing basketball, plus 2 coaches per team, plus say another 40, 50 parents to come together. The kids are all driven by the parents. So you're talking about 50, 60 vehicles that could be coming to the school, let's say for a 4-team tournament in a school of this kind with one gymnasium. Assuming that, usually my experience from my kids being in athletics and so on, it will take, usually those happens on Fridays, after school, starting from 3 o'clock, stretches to about 7 or 8 p.m. Those are the hours my experience with similar schools have happened, or any of the public schools, when usually the tournaments or soccer games or basketball games are held on Fridays. There are opportunities, I'm sure, that if you have a gymnasium, you do the same thing on Saturday. Our discussions with the applicant was just exactly tell us the scope or the size of the events or the games or tournaments. So all of a sudden you have 15 teams come there. Obviously, then it's going to be a totally different story. But overall, if they're keeping it to the same number of tournaments, and you can ask the applicant that even with the existing, they do have tournaments there now, what their experience is with it. But my experience is, under that condition, maybe 40, 50 parking spaces should do it, but some of the parking will definitely occur on street.
Well, I'm talking about the traffic flow that's coming out of the school. Now, I was wondering whether or not if some of these events will spill out into 9, 10 o'clock in the evening when, this quiet neighborhood is ready to go to sleep. Or even if you say it'll end 6, 7 o'clock, that's a time for them to come home, from work. So I'm just trying to look at this thing here. Yes, what we have here is already, we're dealing with it. But, we're, by having the gymnasium here, what additional impact are we going to have in the surrounding neighborhood? And, if it's in the, 6 or 7 o'clock type time frame, then you're fighting the traffic that's coming home. Now, if it's in the later hours, then you're destroying the people that was getting ready to go to sleep. So those are type of things that I'm trying to look at as to, I know, it's not happening every day, but it is something that with the gymnasium there that, we're going to have an increased use of this gymnasium that we're going to have.
The peak hour of Lowell traffic is between about 5 to 6 p.m. Say you can go extra hour, 4:30 to 6 p.m. is when you will have the peak hour on Lowell Street. This is just the general traffic that is on Lowell. If you coming into the school, again, you're restricted just to making a right turn into the circular driver, and if you're going to go to park in the parking lot. When you exit the school, your only way is to make a right turn. You will not be able to make it is restricted, has been restricted for a long time. So as far as conflicts can occur, Beyond 6 p.m. when the traffic is lighter, that shouldn't be a problem as far as access into the school or out of the school.
I'm assuming they're getting access from the Second Avenue, right?
It depends
Because of the
on
parking
what
lots there.
Yeah, it all depends on majority of the traffic is coming from Lowell from the north or from the south. We even have implemented restrictions for U-turn at Community or at Abella. So it used to be parents coming from Foothill will come down and make a U-turn at Abella, try to get back up. So we have put in a lot of turn restrictions to restrict that. So force people, parents only come northbound on Lowell Street in order to come into the school, and also try to limit their drive-through into the neighborhood to the extent possible.
I'm looking at the plot plan here, and the parking is all on the Second Avenue. I don't think you'll get access from Lower Avenue all the way to the parking lot here. So, any.
Well, you
No, you can't.
go through here.
Oh, you do? Oh,
There
I'm
is
sorry.
at the northern, north of the school,
Oh, okay,
the
I see.
northerly permit, there's only, that's why I said,
Okay.
only a single one-lane, basically alley-type drive-through that you can get you to
I
the
see.
parking
Okay.
area.
Ms. Landergan?
And that leads very nicely into my question. I'm looking here at the circulation. I see a minimum road width on the driveway of 15 feet, which does not, of course, accommodate two-way traffic. I look at the fire department's requirement saying, provide an access road for fire department apparatus, depict all dimensions, minimum width 20 feet. And the question I would like to ask is, as a traffic engineer, that's why you're here, we have a 784-foot-long driveway that goes from the front of the property, off Lowell, all the way to the back, swings around. Presently, there's 59 parking spaces, really 51 because the other 8 are in the front. We're going to add another 100, and they're all going to queue up and come out that one way. What do you think of that as a circulation pattern?
Ideally, that's not a good circulation pattern. I mean, we've known from day one that school, for 20 years we looked at that. They have parking right now for the teachers. They're all coming in the morning. They go park in the existing parking lot. And in the afternoon, technically after the school is over, all the teachers drive back out. You could have situations where two cars coming in at the same time, and you are going to block one, and one has to see the other and back out. It is not an ideal condition. We have that situation again in other schools where you have one alley that provides access to and from. The Civic Auditorium parking lot off of Mountain, we have that same thing on one side. One car goes through, then the opposite direction you will not be able to go through. It is not an ideal condition. It's been an existing condition. If you have more activities that are going to be happening going in the both direction, no question about it. I don't have a good solution for it because the buildings cannot be, moved back. You cannot, widen the tree. We looked at that also. If there was a possibility to get additional property, ideally, that would have been nice. But it is a very, very tight configuration. It has to one direction at a time. But you will have times when two cars will come at the same time. One has to back up or one has to go sideways. 15 feet, you can go two cars side by side very, very tightly, carefully, not two SUVs.
No. Let me ask you a further question on this. Wouldn't lighting be required in that parking lot?
Parking lot? Lining, you mean striping?
No, lighting.
I'm sorry, lighting.
They're going to have evening, wouldn't Title 24 require that you have a sufficient lighting so that there are no hazards?
I would have to defer that to planning. I mean, ideally, yes, all parking lots should have lighting, and I believe there is lighting in the existing parking lot. Whether it's sufficient or not, that's not area of my expertise, but for parking lots, you should have parking lighting.
So that's not part of the traffic requirement?
No. But
That would be part of
overall,
plan.
when we look at the design, if we're designing a parking lot, we definitely want to make sure it has lighting. To what extent, I would have to defer to Roger, because I didn't really look at the lighting levels for that parking lot that's being proposed.
Thank you.
In terms of the current situation with drop-off and pickup, is it preferred that they literally leave Lowell and go into the, let's say, the property of the school, as opposed to being let's say, a curbside pickup?
They do both. Actually, years ago, we had a bus stop on Lowell, on the side of the school, in front of the school. We removed that because they really needed additional drop-off area. So not only when you come in, there's a 2-lane entry into the drive-through, and then there's also drop-off on Lowell itself. So it's a combination of the two. Also, the school does a very good job of basically through their calling the kids to be ready to be picked up in the afternoon, which is worse than in the morning. Because morning they just drop off and go. Afternoon, some parents have 2 kids, different hours, and they have to wait. So they do a very good job in that respect, getting the kids to the front of the front of the school to get picked up. But it's done at both curb and driveway.
And have you, so you personally have been out there and seen them going through their drop-off and pickup operations?
For 20 years.
For 20 years you've been out there?
Every year we do that.
Okay. So you do, okay.
Yeah, we do, again, with police on the school, we constantly look at it, especially if we're getting complaints from the residents. We go out there making sure. We did put in a crossing guard at the Bella also because to facilitate the crossing of the students. So,
and that crossing guard's paid by the school?
By the city of Glendale, similar to what we pay for the rest of the schools in the city.
Is there a lot of pedestrian traffic there that comes from the neighborhood, or is the neighborhood less of a feeder community and it comes from all over Glendale? So you have, you know what I'm trying to say.
I believe
Not
majority of the students, and the school probably can give you a better idea. Majority of students are from outside that neighborhood. There's probably some in the close proximity, but a lot of them are driven because they don't live in that neighborhood.
Typical of most private
Yes,
schools.
that's correct.
We'll probably ask the applicant as well. What's your knowledge in terms of their van or busing, their carpool program? What have they implemented that? Is it actively being implemented? What have you seen?
I know the school has attempted to do that because this issue has come up. There has been a condition originally in their approval that they do busing and shuttle from remote areas. I don't think it has been very successful. Again, given the practical nature of having younger kids to be shuttled to a parking lot farther away, and then drop them into a shuttle, and then have the shuttle come to the school, drop them off, and then go the other way. My experience with parents, any school, that has not been a very practical solution. I know they do carpool. That I have observed. How many, I don't have the exact number, but they do carpool. Some of the parents carpool for drop-off and pick-up activities.
Go ahead.
I know you're not part of the fire department, but I'm looking here at fire ingress and egress and the ability to service this building in case of an emergency. Is the secondary access to Second considered a fire access? Do you know that?
I have to qualify again. The fire department has to look at it. It is a tight driveway, so if you want to bring in a hook and ladder, there's no way.
It seems impossible.
A smaller fire truck may be able to make it up there, but it is a very tight access. However, for ambulances and those type of emergency response, I think it's adequate. But if you think of a fire truck going up the driveway, it will be tough. Not speaking for the fire department, but I know the geometry is not very good.
That's why I asked you.
Yes.
Figured you knew that kind
No,
of.
I'm very familiar with that access, yes.
Right.
So have they reviewed these things, the fire department?
I would
And
defer to
the
Roger. I
driveways?
believe they do look at the fire access circulation for emergencies.
Just imagine,
They provided
comments.
comments to us.
okay. Can we get a summary of that later?
It was in your packet.
Yeah, okay, I didn't see it.
Kind of runs on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Anything else for traffic? See none. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your attendance. Anything more from city staff at this time?
Sure. Parking requirements for private schools where enrollment is up to ninth grade require 2.7 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. So that translates actually, if I'm doing my hand math correctly, into 148 spaces, not 147. So that's what would be required for the school use, for this school.
Okay. So, if I, may I? So the reduction is for the 61, so it's 61 minus 148.
Well, we haven't had the public hearing for the parking reduction permit yet, but they would be required 147, 148 spaces, and they are requesting to only provide 61 spaces on site. So that's, the parking reduction would be, for 147, 148 minus 61. That was one question. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee had a question on the parking in the 1992 application.
Yes. we're at
Okay.
55.
The approval says was for an expansion with approximately 55 parking spaces. So that's what the approval was for. In looking at some plans that were included in the file, it looked like to be more than 55, like around 70. The plans that were in the file. So I'm not really sure where the 55 came from and how that changed. So that was, I believe that was your question, Mr. Lee. We can get you the maximum occupancy per building and fire at a later time. And then Mr. Kane wanted to go over conditions of the variance from 2007. Was that correct? Okay. I've just sort of penciled in my thinking on it, and I also recently asked the applicants whether, in fact, they were complying with these conditions. According to the information that was just recently provided to us, their enrollment is 500, and they have a maximum. Their condition says you can only have 500, or up to 500. Kindergarten through grade 8 are the only grades that are taught, and that appears to be the case from the information they've given us. They were required to provide attendance records every 2 months. So they were required to provide how many people were in kindergarten, how many people were in first, how many kids were in second, every 2 months. It doesn't appear that they have done that based on me looking at the file. We recently received one. I didn't see any other enrollment records in the file.
So to your knowledge, that requirement that was required for every 2 months has happened once in the last 2 or 3 years?
That's to my knowledge. Now, I mean, previous to this case, I haven't been involved in the school or any of its requests. So
so potentially they're somewhere else, and you just don't know.
Potentially, yes. I mean, this was addressed to the attendance records that I recently received were addressed to someone else. So they came to me because Shanaz knows that I'm working on the project now, so she thought I was the best person to. So I'm just telling you what I found. You could ask the applicants because they would.
I would just, my recollection from the materials said that regarding that issue, that the documents would be provided to the city for review. So there must be somebody in the city that's supposed to review those.
Well, the condition says shall continue to furnish the zoning administrator with the tenant's records. This was addressed to the zoning administrator. It was given to me because the assistant knows that I'm the one that's handling it now.
Okay.
So. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the conditions, 8th grade shall not, the students enrolled in 8th grade shall not exceed the students enrolled in 7th grade. That appears to be the case based on the current information we have.
Hold just a moment. Mr. Lee, I think, had a question on the previous.
No, not the, I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry.
about the conditions, so I don't know if he
All
may
right,
get to that.
let him get through it.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah.
There was a condition about afternoon pickup, and based on my observation and based on the applicants saying yes, they're implementing this, I would say they are complying with this. That's the condition is that a walkie-talkie bullhorn system is implemented to notify the students to come from the playground out to the drop-off pickup area when their parents have arrived in that area. So that appears to be being implemented. There was a condition about carpooling ride sharing. I did find something in the file from, I believe, 2008 that were basically flyers handed out, I'm assuming to parents of students enrolled there, encouraging them to carpool, some other information that seemed to address this condition. There was a condition on when certain grades started school and ended school, along with recess times. I believe that's being implemented. It doesn't appear like the times have changed, but again, you may want to talk to the applicants to get specifically, because these are very specific. 4th through 8th grade shall start at 8 a.m. So that specificity. I believe that's what they're doing based on my conversations with the applicants. There were some conditions on irrigation and landscaping.
Pretty technical.
And, well, maintenance and good condition and that sort of thing. And I know there have been periodic complaints about that, and I think in speaking with the applicant, he has said that the school does occasionally receive comments on, you need to weed this area of the embankment on the south side. So I think those things periodically come up. None of those issues have been directed to me, but that's from what I've been told. I don't think that they have graffiti or trash problems. I haven't, there hasn't been any complaints or any comments on that. It's my understanding regarding the exterior lights directed away from adjacent properties, I think all they have there are fairly low-level security lights. The parking spaces shall continue to be assigned by the principal who shall furnish a copy of the assignment plan and subsequent alterations thereof to the zoning administrator. I did see one in there. I don't know whether there have been alterations to that plan, but I think that plan was from a couple of years ago. The facility shall not be rented, leased, or otherwise occupied by any use other than for private school. I haven't heard of other entities renting out the school. No expansion of facility without reconsideration of the variance. That's what we're doing today. There was a condition about on-site caretaker household and no sleeping accommodations. I don't think there are sleeping accommodations on the site now, and I was having trouble figuring out where that condition, why that condition was ever sort of initiated. It's been for a while, so I don't think they have anybody on site now. They have on-site security when the school is in operation, in session, but I don't think they sleep over. There are limits to the activities on the site, and back-to-school nights, open house events, graduation programs, 2 or 3 holiday programs, 2 or 3 fundraising events. The activities shall not continue past 10 p.m. Based on the applicants, and I can get that in a second. The applicants provided a list, I think I mentioned to you, of all activities. So they may be having some more larger activities that aren't delineated in this condition. Access to Second Avenue shall be limited to maintenance vehicles and parking for occasional special events after hours. I believe that's being adhered to. And that was about it.
Mr. Lee.
Along that ride sharing and so on, was there a condition for school to provide school bus to bus kids from some other location to here, or to ease some of these problems? I'm reading that in some of the letters here that.
Yeah, there was at some point, and I'm not sure what happened to that. Although the Traffic and Transportation Administrator did mention it wasn't successful. So
was that removed then, or is it just?
I don't.
Is that still part of the condition?
It was. I don't know that it was removed. It's not being implemented, but it's not a condition here.
Ms. Landergan.
Mr. Kiesel, I called you this afternoon concerning 1987 CUP 7578. And the reason I did is in the letter of determination, which we do have but not the CUP, bungalows, temporary bungalows were indicated as being part of the solution, and there was temporary parking and temporary staging areas. However, what my question is, based upon that, is are there still bungalows, and are there any temporary buildings there now? Is everything, because were those replaced? I don't know.
Not to my knowledge. I didn't. I've been on the site 3 or 4 times, and I didn't see any temporary structures.
Well, maybe Mr. Kahn can confirm that for us, because that was...
Not temporary.
Okay.
I can say that.
For the record, Mr. Kahn from the audience stated there were no structures, since he's not mic'd.
Temporary.
Temporary, yes.
No structures.
It's a
Good
blank
point.
slate. Thank you.
I have a question. In some of the comments received from the neighbors, and I didn't see where it was in the conditions, but I might have gone right by it. There were complaints where when the school is having an evening event, and they're notifying the neighbors, they're notifying one person on a block. And where did that kind of develop?
Yes, I remember reading that as well, and I couldn't find
didn't see a
anything
condition.
in
It's,
anything that I read that said that's what they're required to do, or I'm not sure. It was suggested maybe as a courtesy, but it seems odd that only one person on the block would be notified, and then that they would be
so
responsible.
we're not.
for,
You're not. I didn't see it, and you're not
I-
aware of it either.
I
Right?
didn't see anything on that. No.
Any questions further for staff at this time? All right, we'll go into the public comment portion of things. We've got the first speaker card is Michael Delaney. He'll be and by the way, I think one of the reasons I was reappointed chairman is I have a history of mispronouncing names. I am apologizing in advance for any of that, and I'm starting off with an easy one. So Michael Delaney, followed by Anush Managasarian.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mike Delaney. I checked owner on there because of the first box down that kind of applied, and it relates to the fact that I own property at 3934 Community. I think that the gymnasium as part of the overall school is a really nice addition to the school. I have no problem with that. However, in my employment, I do have access to nonprofit organizations, their financial statements, and in particular two that operate halls in this general area. And both of them use outside income to support this event and support the property. And I think that my constraint would be not that you couldn't build it, but basically that it would not be used for anything other or after 6 o'clock. My total comment, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Anush Managasarian. Feel free to correct me.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Thank you very much.
Wow.
I've heard worse.
Wait till you hear some of my other pronunciations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. I am in support of the gymnasium project. My name is Anush Mangasarian. I've worked at Shamlian Armenian School since 1996. I am the manager of operations and facilities. This is an exciting time for us. I think this gymnasium is going to add a beautiful building to our campus that's already very nice. I wish you'd all come and see it. Our physical education department provides a daily program of classes for all of our students, 1st through 8th grade. Besides the typical PE programs like basketball and volleyball, they like to teach them health, nutrition, safety, discipline, sportsmanship. It's unfortunate that due to the lack of an indoor gym, during bad weather, we have to cancel these classes. If it's too hot and I get a report from the city saying the weather is terrible, don't let the kids out, they have to be indoors, no gym. If there's rain, no gym. So we have to cancel exercise for these children that is supposed to be something that they have the right to have, exercise. Also, just remember that noise is a big issue because all the kids are playing outside. This would help in that case also. Again, thanks for the opportunity, and I hope you support our project. Thank you.
Questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you. Vahe Mazmanamian.
Good evening. That was excellent. I'm Vahim Azmanian. I'm an engineer by education and work experience. I have 3 children who've been attending Shamilian for close to 10 years. The oldest is now in the local high school, but I still have 2 in Shamilian. All 3 of my kids have been heavily and are heavily involved in sports. We are a sports family. Mostly basketball, followed by soccer and other activities. My kids play basketball. All three have. Two of them currently do. One of them is in volleyball. The other is in ping pong and track and field. So I'm there, and my kids are involved with the PE and after school team practices. In 10 years, I can't tell you how many times me and my wife have been worried that the weather is hot. We hope they didn't lose their water bottle, they didn't forget their water bottle, starting in October when they do their practices, going into January, December timeframe when the temperatures dip below 50 or 60 degrees after 4 o'clock, then we are concerned about, we hope they didn't lose their sweater, etc., etc. Being in the foothills, high winds occur. Last year, station fire occurred, and there were ash, and we couldn't have the kids outside. So as much as we love and support sports and believe in youth sports, oftentimes they lose the opportunity to do their physical education and their sports practices, sports team practices because of the gym. I'm here to support the gym wholeheartedly. I've been a very active volunteer parent at the school for, again, close to 10 years. And I need to make a couple of corrections that I heard in the reports. One was tournaments like before. In 10 years, with all these activities and sports my kids have been involved with, there has not been one sport tournament that I've witnessed. I've been there on Saturdays quite frequently because they have practices, and 3-4 times a week. I have not witnessed a single tournament that occurred there. Just one correction that I heard repeated a couple of times. Thank you, and I'll cut it short.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Armine Kachaturian.
Good evening. And by Gaudi, that was the best pronunciation of my name that I have heard so far. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and city staff, my name is Armine Kachaturian, and I'm a Glendale resident for the past 20 years. I reside at 3013 Sycamore Avenue in La Crescenta, and I have to say that I am a proud parent of our school, Shamyan School. My older daughter has graduated and is in college now, and I have a 7th grader. Unfortunately, I will not necessarily be enjoying our gym when it gets built, hopefully, since my daughter will be graduating, but I am here to express my support for this project. Like Vahe, I've been a volunteer parent for the school and the community, and I am very excited about this project. And I also would like to urge all of you, when you consider the project, please consider all of the positive merits of this, our project, and hope that you will approve our plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker card is Sean Wells.
All right, thank you, Mr. King. I'm glad the Parking and Transportation Commission is here because there was a...
You do need to recite your name, please.
Okay. I'm Sean Wells. Reside on Abella Street, which is just below the school. There's been numerous problems with the school and this street. There was a preferential parking permit that was presented to the Transportation and Parking Committee several years ago. The committee actually came out and did an assessment of the traffic on that area, and it was determined that 25 to 33% of the students that go there come onto or drive through Abella Street. The parking there is atrocious during the day, and especially at pickup and drop off. The city did determine that we did fit the criteria for this preferential parking commission, but decided that they should not do it. As far as I'm concerned, to this day, it's still been shelved and hasn't been voted on. There is not sufficient parking currently. Currently, we have red curbs that were put in. We have no left turn signs, no U-turn signs, both at Arbella and Community. We have a brand new 4-way stop sign put in at Community and Arbella, which for some reason I don't know why it should be there. We have problems with traffic speeding down the street. We have no curbs, no sidewalks on Arbella at all. The parents as well as the children walk down the middle of the street. When we have people parked on both sides, only one car can fit through there, and then with the traffic it becomes even worse. What I am requesting is, well, a couple of things. We have 100 additional parking. You're going to get bottlenecked up there. It's going to take about a half hour to get 100 cars out of that through a 12-foot space that comes back out onto Lowell. Parents aren't going to park there. Just like they refused a bus, which is part of their conditional use permit, they're going to refuse to park in there, and they're going to come onto Abella Street and onto 2nd Avenue to be able to park. During construction, if you guys approve this, there's going to be a loss of 51 parking spaces for the staff there. Where are they going to park? On Abella Street, on Community, on these other streets that currently have a problem during pickup and drop off. The least I would suggest is that you approve a permanent, without an hour restriction, preferential parking zone for 2nd, for Abella, for Community, and 4th that are right there. This will allow the residents to be secure that this 100 parking lot will actually be utilized, that the parents will not have the option of just discounting it like they have the busing, but it'll give us as the residents some choice in how we control the streets that go on there. I invite every one of you to come out and come to my residence during pickup and see what the congestion is like there. The littering that goes on in my yard. My 2 kids cannot play in my front yard when there's pickup and drop off because of how big and how bad the congestion is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card is Aline Babayan.
Commissioners, Aline Babayan. I am a Glendale resident since the age of 10. I am a proud parent of a Shamyon student and one that's graduated, and I'm in full support of the gymnasium project. I think that it is vital for the safety of our students and for a healthy lifestyle, which I think nationwide we're encouraging. So I hope that you will find in favor of this gymnasium. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Schatz.
I am Linda Schatz here representing my mother who lives on 2nd Avenue. I would like to start with on page 4, the staff report states that the single-family residential properties on 2nd Avenue are at a lower elevation than the subject site. This is in fact untrue, as the 4 houses closest to the proposed gym are at the same elevation. The project will be seen with no difficulty. I do have a picture.
Now be careful, if you give us that picture, we keep it.
Fine.
I have the same one up here.
Oh, it's behind us? No, I just want to make sure it wasn't like some cherished.
No.
Well, there are pictures that the applicant
You can certainly
submitted.
submit it, but we have to keep it for the record.
In addition to that, the existing landscape that screens the property and the proposed gym is on private property. If it were to be approved, I would hope that in the environmental document that the landscaping would have to be put on school grounds. Yes, this has been a school for 50 years, but the history of this land use has been a constant expansion. So now I believe it to be incompatible use of land. I also have difficulty with the 35-foot maximum height when the architectural design seemed quite adequate at 30 feet. Again, you can see the building to the west is only at 30 feet, and it's quite visible. At 35 feet, it will be even more visible. We would also like to ask if we're going to allow the school to expand to the extent that it will impact 2nd Avenue. The gate is gated and locked, and yet it is used during special occasions. They do bring in trucks now and then for carnivals. It doesn't bother our neighborhood. But what is going to be the definition of special events once there's tournaments, other festivities, dancing? Are they going to keep having variances and eventually open 2nd Avenue? We are very much against that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card is Joni Larson.
Good evening, Chairman and Commission and staff. My name is Joni Larson. I am a neighbor. I live on 2nd Avenue, and I hope you got a copy of my letter to the Planning Commission. It's dated January 15th, and I would like to bring up a few points. First of all, there's a discrepancy when Mr. Kiesel was mentioning that the east side of the property line, the gym would be 30 feet from the property line. Mr. Khan, when he spoke, he said it would be 45 feet from the property line. So there's a discrepancy there. My main concern, I was at the July 15th meeting back in 2010, and Mr. Khan, who is the applicant, stated, and I quote, "The gymnasium will be used to host outside tournaments with other schools in the area. There are many concerned neighbors regarding this. It will pose a traffic parking situation that the school has not had before. How will they provide parking for all the outside visitors? As you know, the school has a current parking reduction permit that allows them to have only 59 parking spaces, or 122 parking spaces are required in the R1 zone," referring to variance case number 9662. It's also been brought to my attention by realtors in the area that the building of this gymnasium will be injurious to the properties in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And so I feel, according to the 4 findings that need to be made in the affirmative to grant the Chamelin School variance, item C, that it would, granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located, that it would be injurious to the neighborhood or property which the property is located. Also, at the community meeting, Mr. Khan, the applicant, said that the school is the only junior high in the area that doesn't have a gymnasium. After doing some research, I believe what I found from my research is that all the private schools in Glendale currently who have the same number of students, same age students, not number, I'm sorry, but are K through 8, none of them have a gymnasium. I would request also that the commission would notice that we have it was emailed to Roger Kiesel, the senior planner. We have a petition signed by 47 neighbors that are opposed to this these variances, due to the fact that it will harm our neighborhood and the views that the properties, especially the ones that are located on 2nd Avenue closest to the gymnasium, proposed gymnasium, they are in comparable elevation as the proposed gymnasium. They're not at a lower elevation. Is that my time limit?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question for you, however.
Yes.
That's
Ms.
bonus
Larson?
time for you.
You said that you did some research of private schools K through 8. Can you tell me which schools you looked at, and were they all in Glendale?
I apologize, I did not bring those notes. They are all Glendale. If I remember correctly, it was Holy Family. There are... Oh, I apologize. I had that information and I did not bring it. But I can certainly email it to you.
Okay.
I called each one of those schools individually and asked what they are legally listed as. I asked them, are you an elementary school or are you a junior high? And they all said an elementary school. And I said, do you have a gymnasium? And all of them said no.
So are they K through 8?
Yes, K through 8.
That's
I looked at
considered
them
elementary?
specifically.
That's sort of mixed.
Right. That's why I wanted to know, do you call yourselves a junior high or do you call yourselves an elementary school? Because Mr. Khan, the applicant at the July 15th meeting, said that they were the only junior high in the area that didn't have a gymnasium.
Thank you.
All right, Mr.
Actually, let me interject for a
Yes.
second. I think I did forget to mention, along with the packet of all the letters, you should have also gotten the petition in the back. I'm sorry.
And for the record, we do have that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Richard Larson.
I'm Richard Larson. I live with her on 2nd Avenue. And we have Mr. Khan, I don't know if he misspoke or if I just misheard him. He said he went out 500 feet around the school and put out notices. According to his records, he only went out 300 feet, and that's why maybe so few people came to the meeting in July. We went around, my wife and I walked around the community and with that petition. We got no positive feedback about why people would want the community. I know the people of Chamelin would like it, but as far as the community that we walked to Bella, Lowell, Boston, our street, 2nd Avenue, all negative. Nothing to the positive. I have that variance here, a copy of it for the van pool, which they do not have anymore or won't do. As far as the parking, keep talking about spaces. They're not talking about spaces. They're talking stack parking, which if anyone ever did it, they would probably do it once and never go back. So those people would go back out in the street, and they would not be parking in that facility because it would take forever to get in and out. According to realtors that we've talked to, and I believe you have a letter in your packet from a realtor, and we have a realtor here tonight that works in a neighborhood, this will impact property value. I think you have that picture. Those homes are very close to the gym itself. The gym will be towering over that house at the end of 2nd Avenue. Besides the extra traffic, the tournaments, which Mr. Kahn said he would have there, tournaments mean more than one school, as far as I know. All the tournaments we've gone through, our child, means more than one school, which means more and more parking. Let's see, we have the views from those homes. Those 4 homes are really impacted at the very end at the cul-de-sac of 2nd Avenue. When the construction's going on, we have many old elderly people, and that might be another reason why people didn't come to the meetings. Not that they didn't care. A lot of our people, community, are from that 1960 group with the kids that went through the school, and they are not able to make it to the meeting. So it's not from lack of not wanting to be there that a lot of them cannot attend. We have, like my wife said, it is the only. Why is the elementary school? Because they're still calling themselves elementary school. I do not believe they have a usage permit for it to be a junior high or anything else. Need a gym. No other elementary schools, as she said, do not have a gym. That's about. There's many things, like she's talked about the being injurious to the property around the school. That picture shows how close it would be. And I said the band pool that's supposed to be there, they said it didn't work, so they just discontinued it. They didn't make their students, families use it, so that's why all the congestion on Lowell Avenue. And we really appreciate it if we didn't open up the 2nd Avenue gate, because our street is really not big enough for traffic like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker card is Maria Muriello.
Hello, my name is Maria Muriello, and I've been a realtor in the Crescenta Cañada area for 22 years. And what I'd like to say is that this structure will impact the values, especially on 2nd Avenue. First of all, 2nd Avenue is a very quiet cul-de-sac, and it is used just by the people that live there. Now, there's this little blocked-off area, the driveway, that can be accessed. And with all these variances that have been given the school, what's to stop them from getting another variance to widen that driveway and exit out onto 2nd Avenue and take away the enjoyment of having a cul-de-sac street? Most people that I know would prefer to live on a cul-de-sac than on a thoroughfare which will access the school. They say, yes, now it's not being used, it's locked, it's only used for specific events, but if you have a gymnasium and special events, I can guarantee you there will be parking over on 2nd Avenue, people trying to walk through and around, or go up Boston and end up around on Lowell, and it will impact the neighborhood there. It will also become a disclosure item that any realtor would have to make, that there will be a 35-foot structure, and yes, it will impede the view and the serenity of the current neighborhood. And you will be able to see it. I can see the sight line, and the photograph that Joni provided does show you that. And I invite you to come and look at 2nd Avenue and And what's to stop them for asking for another conditional variance to open up that back section? Seems like, to me, they have had many, many variances, and many of them issued to them so that they can continue expanding the school. So there you go. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker card is Arto Kazarians.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Arto Kazarians. I'm a resident of Glendale for the last 25 years. I'm a proud parent of 3 Shamlian students, and I'm very happy to see a gymnasium in the school because of that athletics and sport activities. I'm very involved with the community, athletic clubs. So that athletics and sporting events it's good for the healthy kids and healthy community. So I'm really for the gymnasium, and I would like you to vote for approval of this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mario Yacobian.
Good evening, Chairman Kane. Congratulations, commissioners, city staff. My name is Mario Yacobian. I currently serve as a commissioner on City of Glendale's Transportation and Parking Commission. However, I'd like for the record to reflect I am not here in any capacity as a commissioner, nor will I be reflecting any views or opinions of the TPC. I am here as a Shamlian parent who has been actively working with the parents, the administration, the students, and the City of Glendale in comprehensively addressing the traffic and safety issue. As a concerned citizen, I was instrumental in bringing forth the pedestrian safety workshop in Glendale a couple years back that was conducted by the Office of Traffic and Safety at UC Berkeley and the Department of Public Health. My record and commitment to improving traffic and pedestrian safety is a long one. With my assistance and Shamlian's dedicated Traffic Safety Committee, we have begun this comprehensive campaign to educate the parents and the students and help to enforce the rules and encourage the entire community to change past behaviors in order to keep the children and the surrounding community safe. We are following the principles set forth in the Safe Routes to School program and the Safe and Healthy Streets campaign, which encourages the parents to park a safe distance away, hopefully, and the way we're trying to do is get them to park up on Foothill and to walk with their children. And as I tell them as they're walking, you know, there's no harm in walking with your children, getting to speak to them, how was your day, and taking that extra time. And there has already been a difference in the amount of traffic that's going up, pedestrian traffic up Lowell to Foothill. I am on the front line every day in front of Shamlian. I am there during the crucial traffic time between 2:45 and 3:30 during the pickup time. I see the problems the school faces and the great possibilities to improve. Building a gymnasium would bring numerous benefits, but I would just like to highlight, in my opinion, the benefit that it would bring in reducing the congestion that clogs Lowell during that pickup time frame. If there could be a facility for these children to use after school, for exercise, to participate in programs, I mean, the ideas are endless. And to keep them in the schoolyard, it would take those cars of those parents ready to pick up those kids off the street during those crucial times and spread it out. So a few, instead of coming all at once, would come later on in the day when the time is calmer, and it wouldn't create that big congestion. When it rains, well, I'd like to encourage all of you to come to Shamlian Armenian School when it rains, because when it rains, all the kids are forced out of the school. And during that hectic time, that's probably the time where you might all be thinking, gee, the school could really use a gymnasium, because actually that's what we're here for. I respectfully request that this commission act on staff's recommendations and approve this. Thank you.
I have a question if no one else does. All right. For lack of a better phrase, the expertise serving on TPC, at least being exposed to some of the issues. You're working hard to improve things at the school. You're hearing very clearly, and I'm sure you've heard complaints about the neighborhood. And Do you have a suggestion on how to improve the situation that's happening? Is it Abella? Yeah, Abella Street. Do you have any ideas that could be implemented to improve the conditions that they're facing?
Well, if the particular issue, as the speaker had said, was the, and I'm, as a parent, as a citizen of Glendale, I can speak for everyone at Chalmette. We're very disconcerted to hear that there would be littering on the street. We're not advocating anything of the sort. So in terms of that, that's an education thing. I mean, the whole part of this comprehensive improvement that's going to be happening at Chalmette involves education, enforcement of current laws. Currently, I mean, I don't want to go take into the time, but we're making changes such as no parking in the red zone means no parking in the red zone, ladies and gentlemen. It means we put the cones out there, and I remind people to keep the traffic moving. It has made a huge difference. We're seeing more, according to Kathleen, the crosswalk, who's south of Shanlian, she's seeing improvement. And I spoke to her recently. More people parking and walking. We understand there's a delicate line between parking. We do not encourage, and it's all part of the education that we'll be doing with the City of Glendale, with the police officers, to address the issues that are facing. We're going to be speaking individually to each class at Shanlian, because we believe the students also have a huge responsibility. It's not just the parents, it's the students as well. So all of this is a comprehensive effort. We do understand, I mean, I drive up Lowell when I drop off my kids, and I sympathize. I mean, I really do. I'm one of those parents, and if I could turn this way too to judge them, I'm one of those parents that say, gosh, let's just all be very respectful, because there are people living here, and I'm hoping that in our effort with the Traffic Safety Committee, we are going to get that out. And we already see great improvements happening at Shanlian. So
let me ask another question. The preferential parking zone, did that come in front of you yet?
No, it did not. Okay. No, that was, I think if it initially did, it was before my time serving.
I just was curious if it come in front of you. All right, that's all I had right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker card is Harut Kasabian.
Good evening. My name is Harut Kasabian. I've been a resident of Glendale since 1982. I've seen the city change quite a lot. I'm also a proud parent of two young children, one of them who have graduated, and then my young daughter is in 7th grade. I'm a civil engineer in profession. I work for Metropolitan Water District, and I'm here in support of the gym project. I think it is a positive foot forward, to go ahead and encourage the safety and the well-being of our children. I truly do sympathize with the residents in the area. If I was to switch places and if I was in their shoes, I would feel somewhat concerned as well. But at the same time, I would hope their patience and their understanding. It is something that, as a parent, at the end of the day, it isn't all the hard work that we put in. It's not about us, it's about our children. We would like to see their safety and well-being. And with the gym, we will be able to protect them from the outside environment, whether it's the cold weather, the hot weather, or the safety. Just recently, my young daughter, she twisted her ankle outside playing, and she has a cast that she has to put on for the next 3 weeks. And I can't tell you how many of these incidents have happened in the past. And I believe with the gym, we may be able to have a safer environment for the children. Again, it's a give and take. I think the school and the parents, everyone is doing their best to be respectful, to follow all the rules and guidelines, to comply with the city requirements, as well as respecting the neighborhood. And I hope the neighborhood will also understand and support us, because it's not so much for us, it's for our children, for their future. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And I hope you will be in support and do take a look at the positive side of this.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Jewel McKeever. Jewel McKeever. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's way in the back.
Good evening. My name is Jewel McKeever, and I live on Abella Street. And I can appreciate the reasons why this gym is wanted. But as a a neighbor in the community. I really feel that the parking would be an issue. I know that when you have different events, it's not just the people who attend the school, but you do have guests that come. And I'm concerned about the traffic and the noise level. There are times when people do park on our block, and it's from time to time. I live right at the curve. The block curves around. I live right at the curve. There's one parking spot in front of my home, and when events are at the school, that parking spot is taken. Of course, it's, anybody can park there, but parking is an issue, and I really believe that it would be a lot more traffic with having the gymnasium built in on the school grounds. And if the things that are being said about the property value are true, that is a major concern for me. So I don't want to be redundant, but just looking to see what my notes say. If those things are true that I'm hearing about property value, and I really do believe that traffic would increase. I believe that when you have parking on the street and you have people coming through, the community is very quiet. You will have more noise from people walking up and down the street, and who knows how often this will be, but that's my opinion, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker card, David Myers.
Good evening. My name is David Myers, 8 Mountain Oaks Park. Good evening. Excuse me, I'm going to read from a prepared statement. It's easier that way. Good evening. I was going to sit this one out, but something just didn't feel right with this project. Then I read the staff report, and a comment from a neighbor's letter really hit home with me. Quote, "When did it become okay for an elementary school to become a junior high?" End quote. After reading that, I felt compelled to speak with the commission. While I support the efforts to provide education, I do take issue with the proposed expansion. How can another variance or additional variances be awarded to this project when the problems created with the first go-around have not been addressed? Traffic is horrible on Lowell during pickup and drop-off hours, and is so congested that I have to avoid Lowell during those times. We have been promised over and over that these issues will be fixed. Well, they are not by a long shot. Initially, they were granted conditional rights to operate a private elementary school in a residential zone. Now it has morphed into a junior high as well. The school was not outfitted to run as a junior high, hence the request to erect a gymnasium. But the original conditions have not been met. Specifically impacts the traffic flow and off-site parking issues. This school is a commuter school, not a neighborhood walk to school, as evidenced by the long line of cars creeping up Lowell every school day. I remember living not more than 500 feet from this school just a few years ago. I lived at 9320 Belvoir. And hearing the loudspeaker or bullhorn announcing the name of the students whose ride had arrived. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like the parents on Peanuts. That wah, wah, wah. That's what you hear from 500 feet for an hour. Every day, that's what you hear. I don't live there anymore, though. Now they want to increase the size of the facility while cutting down on the parking. Where exactly are the staff or 500 students going to park? There will be a mere 57 spaces for staff if the proposed project is approved. And the question, how many staff do they have? They have succeeded in circumventing the process so far. How much more will they get away with? Let me wrap it up. So what to do? I'm not suggesting shutting the place down by any stretch. It has been operating for almost 30 years now. It is a fine educational facility. What I'm suggesting is an incentive for them to fix these well-known and documented traffic and parking problems. This is the time to fix these long-standing issues. After these long-standing issues are resolved, then and only then, give the reward. Approval of a variance or variances in this case. If the Commission denies these requests, most likely, it'll be appealed and go before the city council. This will give the school the opportunity to fix these long-standing issues once and for all. If corrected, the grounds for the approval on appeal will happen, and everybody will be happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Greg, excuse me, I'm going to start from the top because I'm going to do it right. No, Agamanukian.
Very good.
Thank you. I just swallowed. It was not a mispronunciation.
I've been called a lot of different things. Greg, Alphabet, among other things. Well, good evening, and thank you very much. Just by way of background, my name is Greg Agamanukian. I'm a resident of Glendale. And I was actually very delighted to find out when the school told us they're going to have a project to build a gymnasium. Because, finally the kids in the school, including my two sons, my 7 and my 11-year-old, are finally going to have the opportunity to play and to exercise and to blow off steam when it's either raining or it's too hot or it's too cold or whatever Mother Nature throws their way. So, we were very, very happy about that. And I guess being an accountant, I had a very simplistic view about this, and I'm saying here's a school that's requesting to have a gymnasium so the kids during the school hours can basically enjoy, exercising and playing basketball, and basically, when they can't do it any other time. So to me, it's a very simple request. It's a logical request. It's a very reasonable request, and I'm obviously here to support it. And that's really what I have to say. And other than that, I just want to thank everybody in the city of Glendale for helping us, look at this project. And I'm eager for it to start so that at the end of the day, the kids can go back to having a proper school life, and basically we'll have overall a better community. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Last speaker card I have is Vazken Mandelian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vaskan Madenlian. I'm the principal of Shamlian Armenian School. I've held that position for the past 20 years, so I must be doing something good that they kept me there for so long. We have 500 students in our school, ages 6 to 13. And as all children at the same age, our students love to play sports. They love basketball, volleyball, and all other ball games. In one word, they love to play, the kids. However, due to weather conditions, cold, rain, wind, or heat, physical education classes and sports practices are often canceled, and students are deprived of the physical activity they so need and enjoy. We are left with no option but to keep them in the classrooms during these times. And as you can imagine, this leads to a lot of frustrated and unhappy students. The athletic facility we're proposing will give our students the chance to have their PE classes and sports practices without interruptions, regardless of the weather conditions. It would be a vital addition to our school, as it will help our students stay healthy and happy, and surely enhance the feeling of pride and belonging they have for their school. In the interest of our students, I therefore urge you to grant us the permission to build the gym. Thank you very much. Let me just make a correction. The student reports that we were supposed to send every 2 months have been sent regularly with no interruption. They have been sent to the zoning commissioner. I have a copy here. And we have been sent, I have all the copies at the school as well, and the reason why we have been sending there, because this is what we were told. Nobody called us and asked us to send us anywhere else. So if need be, I can provide all the copies for the last so many years. And furthermore, I submit a petition which has been signed by 147 parents, urging you to grant us the permission. Thank you very much.
Ms. Landergan?
Yes. I'm going to ask you a question about your playground areas. Because you have K through 8, you should have 2 separated playgrounds.
1 through 8, ma'am. Let me make a correction. We don't have K on our campus.
Okay.
1
so
to
it's
8.
1 to 8. So do you have separated playground
Yes,
areas?
Yes, we do. On the north side, we have 2 smaller playgrounds for grades 1 through 3.
All right.
And the bigger playground is for grades 4 to 8.
Can you tell me about how many students you have 1 through 3?
Approximately 50% of the student population, approximately, is 1 to 3. Although, please don't quote me on that. The exact number is on the list. That I would say approximately.
Okay.
according to the latest records,
Maybe I'm wrong there, though.
240 kids are in first, second, and third grade.
Okay.
Pretty close.
About half.
How many classrooms is that?
28.
I'm sorry, 20. I'm sorry. That's for the whole school, right?
How many?
How many for those grades?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
So around 25 kids a class.
Yeah, that's the average number. 24, 25.
This is,
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, on your after-school events, the back-to-school nights and things like that, how many people do you usually have who attend those events? And is parking usually accommodated all in the school, and is the temporary parking used up as well?
No, during those events, because no kids attend these events, only its parents, although I haven't counted them, but I would say quite a few hundred attend. We have 2 back-to-school nights for grades 1 to 3 and 4 to 8. And during those nights, the playground, the main playground, where there's no activity at all, is also opened and used for parking. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
and you use attendance. How do you control that?
How do we? Oh, we have 3 attendants during those nights. 3 parking attendants, 3 security guards. At any special event, after school, we have 2 to 3 security guards. Regularly, during regular traffic hours, we have 2 security guards who regulate traffic. But on special occasions, depending on the size of the event, we have 2 and sometimes 3 security guards.
Is there, the school day ends, the kids leave. Is there a plan afoot to create basically a daycare or an extended hours type of situation?
Well, for now, we have some kind of a what we call after-school hour for parents who leave work a little late, okay, which goes from 4 to 6. Now, these kids wait for their parents in the auditorium.
So
At
that's
about 25 to 30 kids between the hours of 4 to 6.
All right, that's already in place. And is that I'll ask staff later, is that use permitted without a conditional use? Is that considered, it doesn't seem to me like it's really kosher.
Well, it's all accessory activities on the premises shall be clearly incidental to the school's primary educational function and shall be limited to. It's not one of those.
I mean, I know a lot of
It's not an
schools
activity
do it.
that's limited to this. I mean, based on personal experience, I know my daughter's school has 2 after-school programs that she can enroll in, that students can enroll in. I think it's very common in public schools. I don't know about private schools.
This is not a program. This is just a time, 2 hours supervised, okay, where the kids simply sit there, wait for their parents. Some of them do their homework. Some of them just mess around, I guess.
And approximately how many children?
About 25 to 30 to start with, and they're very closely. I mean, the number really goes down within about 1 or at most 1.5 hour. Most of the time, because I'm there sometimes working a little late, by 5:30 they're gone.
Is a parent charged additional for that?
Yes.
Okay.
About $2 or $2.50 per hour.
Okay. Talk to me about the bullhorn.
Bullhorn, this was a condition that was given to us. It's one condition that was that we were asked to implement in the last CUP, that using the public address system, we have to implement it's right there.
Yeah, why don't I read the condition out and then?
Yes. Right. There may be a condition. It's the implementation that. Right.
And then I was there. It was probably early to mid-fall this year to sort of observe the pickup time.
It is noisy, but it helps the traffic flow tremendously. We have 2 or 3 attendants calling names, and at the same time, kids are encouraged to go to the parents, okay, because very often after school, kids play, and by the time the parents come and wait, not to cause unnecessary delay, we've implemented this system. And I'm proud to say that many other schools have come and observed us and copied that system. I always say if I had patented it, I probably would have made some money by now.
Okay. Do you want me to read the condition? Sure. Okay. The school shall continue to undertake afternoon pickup traffic management through the walkie-talkie/bullhorn system instituted in the 1991-92 school year, including sending parents out of the circular driveway to try again if the child has not arrived when the parent is ready. In addition, for the first 4 to 6 weeks of each semester, parents shall place an index card on their dashboard visible through the front window with the student name or names clearly visible in large block letters to assist school staff in matching students with parents during the afternoon.
All right, thank you.
And I was out there one day observing, and it appears that this is being implemented. They have someone with a microphone calling out a student's name, and the kid comes, gets in the car, and goes. So.
Okay. How did this notifying one person on a block about events?
This was a verbal understanding years ago when we came to this, or the zoning commission for the variance. And again, it's not written in there, okay? But we were told that every time there's something going on after school, if I could notify Mr. Don Fisk, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, a very respected member of the community, a former educator principal himself, and Don would take the task upon himself of notifying all the residents, and that's what we've been doing.
Okay, that answered that.
Just act as an ombudsman, so to speak.
All right. Recognizing that there are a lot of people apparently in the neighborhood that are unhappy about things. And,
about what?
Well, it seems primarily about traffic. Okay. Good point. And not doubting steps that have been taken or are being attempted, do you have any suggestions that we could consider that would continue to improve the situation, especially I'm focusing on Bella Street? I think 2nd Avenue is more of a sporadic thing. I don't think that's a traffic issue so much as it is concern over event. So how do you improve conditions on a Bella?
Off the top of my hand right now, I don't, to be perfectly honest, because we've tried many things and we continue to try. Okay, we have special meetings in the older days. Sergeant Guay, who was the traffic officer, would come and give a talk to our parents, making suggestions. We would have special assemblies during back-to-school night. While addressing to our parents, I always made a point of the traffic situation, the parking situation. We send them emails, we send them telephone messages, letters, always encouraging them to be courteous to the neighbors. Unfortunately, we do have some bad apples sometimes who just don't comply. Other than that, any new suggestion, we're open. What Mrs. Yakubian recently, a moment ago suggested basically came from her, and we said, okay, let's sit down and talk. Let's see what we can do. And any time when a resident calls me, calls the school complaining about something, we do everything we can to take care of the situation. The only problem is that sometimes when we're called, people don't leave a name or a telephone number so that I can get back to the person and say, okay, let me talk to you, let me see what your problem is, let me get back to you and tell you that that has been resolved. Sometimes it does happen. However, on many occasions, I've been in communication with many, many residents on Abella, on 2nd Street, and on Community, as well as Lowell, throughout my 20 years, where people have called and expressed their concern, about anything, and we have been very proactive.
Have you been in opposition, or are you aware of anyone else on your board or associated with the school that has been actively opposed to a preferential parking plan?
None whatsoever. Doesn't make any difference to us.
Okay.
And it's the city's prerogative. They can do whatever they want.
Understood. And then finally, the ideas of carpool, van, remote bus type of thing, it sounds like that hasn't been working.
Actually, about 3 years ago, because we implemented, again, I've been there for 20 years, for the first 17 years, we implemented to the letter. However, about 3 years ago, we had 2 buses. The number of students requiring bus service dropped to a ridiculous level. One of the buses went back and forth for 2 weeks with absolutely nobody. I mean, this was almost surreal. Nobody in the bus was going back and forth from the pickup place to the school with nobody. And the other bus had only 2 students. At that time, we made a decision to cancel the bus because with 2 students in one bus and no one on the other bus, it was more of a traffic problem than alleviating the problem. However, having said that, since then, every year and sometimes during the year, okay, on many occasions, we have tried again to resuscitate the program, called parents, send them emails. We have a study, actually, I'll be glad to submit you the copy of the study, to again resuscitate this program service. However, it didn't happen, and I cannot force people to take the bus.
There are ways to motivate.
Oh, we've tried many ways that we aren't.
Tuition reductions.
I tell you what, ma'am, we were losing money like there's no tomorrow on that program, and we were prepared to do that, okay? However, when I spoke to many parents, the argument they gave is, we feel safer when we drop the kids. Sir.
Is that just an amen, or?
I think it's already been said. I guess you can carry this as far as you want. Are they aware that, have you ever thought of making the parents aware that if they don't comply, that it could impact a project like the gymnasium?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. We didn't talk about the gymnasium at the time.
But
The
any
problem
changes or variances or upgrades?
However, we have always told them if they don't comply, the problem is that for them, I don't see that as a compulsory thing. It's optional. That's what I'm saying. If I had the right, if I had the power to enforce it, I would have done it. It's not a discipline issue. Okay? It's again, it's optional. So when they say no, I'm not going to take, because I feel much safer if I drop my kid. There's a sex offender living down the street, and this is true. This is true. Okay? Child molester, former, living on somewhere, and I'm not going to name the street, okay? What can you say? Okay, you feel safer, okay? You have to drop, you have to drop. But again, I'll be more than happy to submit a study that we did recently with all the correspondence to the parents, encouraging them, urging them to take the bus, use the bus service, but we had 0 response, absolutely 0.
Thank you.
I would like you to help me a little bit here. I've worked with LAUSD, and I know their minimum standards for designing facilities and play usage. What does a private school use for those standards? Does the California Department of Education have standards for private schools and recommendations that you follow?
We follow the standards, California. We have a special person, an academic director, who pretty much meticulously implements those standards.
So when
you're talking about the academic program, right?
No, I understand the academic program.
No.
I'm talking about the facilities and the playground square footage and your recreational square
Okay, I'm not a
footage.
technical person. Probably I'll have to go back and talk to my friends. I'm not an architect, or, I don't have technical training in that respect.
Okay, I was just wondering who oversaw the site requirements and the minimum standards for student per square foot, et cetera.
At the time when we were giving the variance, okay, it was the zoning commissioner, I guess, who did all the study compared to schools in the neighborhood, okay, and gave us the okay at the time. However, more than that, I'm not in a position to answer you at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Khan, you
I
have...
had one more
I'm sorry.
question.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
One
I
more
thought you were
question.
done.
Do you have...
Yeah.
I can relate. Do you all have an advisory group? I know that Ms. Kubian had said that you all have a traffic advisory group. Do you have an advisory group on at this school that invites a community member to be part of it in discussions of community relations?
Basically, it's the board. It's the school board who takes care of these matters. Okay, the school board is pretty much does everything. Okay, we have a parents support committee, what we call the PSC or the PTA. We have various other committees, but as far as community relations go, it's pretty much the school board that takes care of the matter.
Have you ever thought about inviting a community representative? Because you're not the only school that is in this position. I've done schools all over LA County. I'm telling you, it's the neighbors and schools are at cross purposes a lot of times.
Well, obviously we can do more. I agree with you, but we have done in the past occasionally invited people, just like we did last July for this particular project. And in the past, we've invited people from when the preferential parking situation arose again, we invited people. We've done this on occasions. It's not done on a regular basis. It's more like on a need basis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Khan.
You have the con.
Good evening again. And I'll try to address what I heard, at least most of it. To begin, there are no temporary structures on the campus. I kind of yelled that out in the back. I have tendency to do that. The notification was already addressed. There was a lady that spoke about the height of the structure, and she said her preference was for it to be 30 feet instead of the 35 feet. That would be fine with us. We originally came in at 30 feet. It was the city staff that said if you wanted to raise it up for design purposes or whatnot, if you so see fit to go back to 30 feet, we're fine with that. Absolutely no problem whatsoever.
Let me interject then for a second.
Sure.
Because I want, just on that single point, one of the advantages to the 35 was all the mechanical equipment was enclosed by the parapet. Were you involved with any of that discussion, that whole 30 to 35?
Yes. We've got, our urban designer on staff. There were two reasons why we suggested going from a request of 30 feet to a request of 35 feet. The first reason was the urban designer on staff thought that it was at 30 feet very tight, and that as development of the gym progressed through construction drawings, that 30 feet may very well not be possible, and if a variance was granted at 30 feet and the building now exceeded it, they would have to come back for another variance. So that was the first reason why we encouraged them to increase to 35 feet. The second reason was that to give the design review board, because they will see the project, some flexibility in design of the gymnasium. So if they saw fit to improve the design with not a flat roof, they would have some flexibility to do that. That was the second reason, to give them some design flexibility.
Okay.
From our perspective, we just see the one issue, which is the design. We can meet the first issue, which is the code issue, at 30 feet. So from our perspective, if we're raising it 5 feet, it's purely design.
Please continue.
The other items that were brought up, and it's just a few points of clarification before I conclude. One was there was a claim made that said, Mr. Kiesel said something about a setback at 30 feet. I said something about a setback at 45 feet. The 30 feet is the setback from the building to the north. The 45 feet, which I stated, is the setback from the property to the east. The gentleman mentioned about The notification saying that, no, it was a 300-foot radius, it was not a 500-foot radius, that's incorrect. That's okay. The location map that you have was 300 feet. That's what I provided you. I did not provide you.
Let's just make sure that you're addressing us,
and I'm
the
addressing
people in the audience try to hold it down, okay? Thank you.
The property owner's map that we mailed out to was 500 feet. I didn't give everybody copies of the 500 feet or the mailing labels. I gave them a location map that was based on 300 feet. So, just clarification, it was 500 feet that was mailed out. There was talk about improving circulation in the area, and I think that you've heard from a number of the speakers that the Shamlian School has proactively addressed traffic parking through this comprehensive program. And I think was mentioned by the principal, and I thought he said it very well. If there are ideas or there are thoughts that this commission has, we'd be more than happy to listen to you. Also, I know that the preferential parking that has been mentioned, I know that's through the Traffic and Parking Commission, if that was to be possible. But if in terms of comments or recommendations, we'd be very supportive of that as well. Anyway, I'm going to conclude my remarks. Thank you for listening to us. Obviously, I hope very much that you see your way to approving this project.
Ms. Landergan.
Mr. Kahn, would we have a copy of the mailing list that you had the 500-foot, right?
Right
It would
here.
be in the file, right?
Sure. If I give you this and you make a copy, you can have this one too.
I'm just saying, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was the case.
We did it, and I know
For
a
this
fact.
public hearing, we did notice property owners within 500 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Can I add just, and we did the same for the community meeting as well.
And was
It wasn't
that
just
also
this.
done for the negative declaration? The EIR?
The notification was both for, I think it was for both. We don't, I'll have to look into that. We don't typically notify
See, I think I can answer this. For secret purposes, we only do a newspaper notice. But along with the hearing item that we send a mailed notice, we usually advertise that the CEQA status of the project.
I think that's what we did this time. So the public notice that everybody within 500 feet received had information on the public hearing. It also had information on the environmental and the comment period for that. In addition, the environmental was also in the paper.
All right, thank you. One more question. On the section elevations that we have here, we have 45-foot trees existing. However, in here, it indicates that there's going to be new landscaping. And the neighbors on 2nd Street really specified that at the moment, any of the screening landscaping that is occurring on the edge of 2nd is on private property. In the design that I'm looking at here, in that 45-foot setback that has parking, is there going to be screening landscaping there? I don't see any conceptual trees. I know this is conceptual, so. And screening of that neighborhood area.
Commissioner Landrigan, if there is space to fit in there, one of the things we had is if you see the circulation, we're at the stalls are with the backup areas, et cetera. If there is space as it kind of thins out and then fans out, and we could plant additional landscaping, and there's space there, we will.
So the tree height that is drawn on here, is this the mature tree height, or are you adding more landscaping to increase the buffer zone there? I'm not understanding what you're proposing. I just saw new landscaping is proposed.
Commissioner Landrigan, if you looked at the plot plan, there's some very large trees on the south side of the property, but there's actually a gap
In fact, I think I probably
There's
have
a
some.
wall with a fence on top of it.
Yeah, but I'm
Landscaping
talking.
below
I'm talking about
it,
the very
right?
large trees. This will give you an idea.
I couldn't find those.
Those are. Right. Are you talking about these three trees?
No, I'm talking about.
I'm looking at this.
I'm talking
too.
about the whole landscape.
I see where the gap is. Okay.
So if you look at that, there's a gap there. We are proposing, and you can see on the plot plan, to plant a very large tree, which is, I think it's a 72-inch box, to fill that gap. So that entire south side will have a screened, mature landscaping on it.
And how tall are those trees?
Oh, goodness.
A 72-foot box.
The existing or what we're proposing?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be about
The
15, 20 feet,
about 20, 25 feet.
depending on the tree.
Right.
Well, I'm curious to find out what will happen to the three trees that are much larger, much taller than the existing buildings there, and they do somewhat of a partially decent job of covering up the buildings. And I think they're located right next to.
It's hard to tell where they are. I couldn't tell on your photographs, really. I think what we're looking at here.
See if
That's one of the speaker's photos.
I'm not.
I think these.
You think they're?
I think it's
see
those
it.
three trees.
Oh, you think so? That could be it.
I think they.
I mean, I'm wondering what would happen to those three trees once this is being built, because I think they're going to be coming out.
You won't see them because of the
building
the
between.
building.
Yeah, you wouldn't see those trees.
The building goes in front of those trees.
Well, they're not even in this on the map here.
Right.
So
So they're gone.
So are they gone, or are they being moved in front of?
No. They can't. You can't move those trees. I think what was being pointed out to us was if we had an opportunity to plant some more trees along that Second Avenue side, we would. But no, those trees are not going to remain.
And that aisle setback from the building here for the gymnasium, is that a fire code setback, or is that fire access setback? Or
I would have to defer to our architect.
Your architect.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the pictures? Did they go back on the wall?
They're hiding right here.
Oh, thank you.
So that's the question. Was
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Varush Roy. I'm an architect on record. The question that you asked, we have that 10 feet, half inches gap between the existing school building and the proposed gym. It's a code requirement. We have to be able to justify the building, the proposed building. If you look at the project description, we have called that as a type 2B, which is a non-combustible building, basically. We have to have that gap, since on the school side where there are some windows, and the windows have to be protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was there any consideration to make it a taller tree than the 25-foot tree that's being proposed?
Commissioner, we could, but that's a pretty large tree we're talking about, and I'd defer to Ms. Landergan. We could, but at some point, you got to get it in there. You got to set it. You got to lift it. You got to do whatever. That's a pretty mature. That's a pretty good size 72-inch box. It's a pretty big tree coming in.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the picture, and I'm not sure if that would do an adequate job of screening the 25-foot tree, screening the building, since you have another 10 feet. Well, I guess 5 feet if you're going to be building up to 30 feet.
Yeah, and if you also remember the line of sight, what we're talking about, we're talking about just filling one gap area as it relates to the whole area.
Right, so either way, you're talking about it's not going to be able to screen completely.
You would from the line of sight, right? Because look at the first drawing.
Right.
Yeah, are we talking about the southern landscaped area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted clarification.
Yeah.
I was just talking in terms of from the viewpoint of the second story of the homes. which is different from the line of sight as portrayed here.
Okay, maybe I'm a little confused. You're talking about Second Avenue? Or
On
you're
Second Avenue, yes.
Okay, I've
Yeah.
been talking the whole time
Oh, okay.
about Abella on the
Right,
south
right.
side. Okay, so the Second Avenue, I think that's what was mentioned. If we could put whatever we can put in terms of trees that will grow up there, we'd be happy to do. I just don't know. I'd have to determine what the
Okay, I
width
was
is
just
to be
confused about
adequately,
that. Sure.
to be adequately addressed. Well, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Other rebuttal comments, Mr. Khan?
No, sir. That's it.
Anything else from the commission? All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Khan.
Thank you very much.
Any closing remarks from staff?
Yes, give me 1 second. In the staff report, I did highlight some where the conditions, the proposed conditions of approval for the current project came from, and noted some changes from the previous submittal. So I'd like to highlight those need to be highlighted. The other thing is, in a recent conversation we had at the staff level, sorry. The motion contains a number of conditions, and condition number 26, the proposed condition 26, the applicant shall provide parking attendants to safely direct cars to surface parking lot and asphalt play area when events such as graduation, parent meetings, opening ceremonies, tournament, school festivals, or similar gatherings are scheduled for use by Chamberlain School. We'd like change that proposed condition to require that a parking and traffic management plan be submitted by the applicants to our traffic and transportation section and to the Community Development Department for review and approval. So, if you're inclined to approve the variance request, that would be a condition that we want to modify from a staff point of view.
Would that be a plan for the entire, just how to handle these events, or is it on a per event basis you're talking about? It would be just a general plan on how to handle.
I mean, at this point, I don't know that I can answer that.
If I may, I can answer that because I was part of the conversation that Roger's talking about. We thought about a parking and transportation management plan that would be applicable during the times of special events and for review and approval to the satisfaction of the traffic and transportation administrator and in conjunction with community development department staff. So in other words, we would look at it and that would be the parking and transportation plan that they would follow every time they have a special event that would require them to use the back parking lot for additional cars.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Any questions pop up for the public or for the applicant in the last few minutes? Flandergan?
I have a question for staff. The preferential parking permit that vanished like snow on the water. That would be great to hear about this.
Overall, the preferential parking is, the purpose of that is when you have the parking situation, which is an ongoing all day, essentially if you have business employees of businesses that are parking on a residential street taking up the parking, and more than 25% of the on-street parking is used by non-residents. Not necessarily for a short-term 1 hour, 2 hour parking that occurs maybe in the morning and the afternoon. With respect to Abella, there was a petition, that was considered by the city, Transportation and Parking Commission. It was not approved because the intent of that was only in the morning and the afternoon as it relates just to school parking. And looking at it from a citywide standpoint, are we going to do that? And every city, every public or private school in the city where you have the same situation, where the curb parking is very limited, and in the morning and in the afternoon you have to allow parents who are coming to that school to be able to park on street, drop off their kid, or even walk their kid to the school. So that was looking at it from a larger scale, not setting a precedent for one school or another. Whereas with respect to the Glendale Community College, where it was a larger scale preferential parking program where we had a lot of the students parking all day on residential street, by building parking for the Glendale Community College, we put in a large district around the college, where then it forced all the students to buy a permit and park on street. Whereas in most of the public school areas, I'm just dealing with Verdugo Woodlands Hill School, exactly the same situation. Not enough curb parking, drop-off area on Verdugo Road. There is access from Colina Street. There are residents on Colina Street that are not happy about allowing that for kindergarten parents who are dropping off their kids, and they want preferential parking, or they've asked for preferential parking. So it is an issue that we have to look at it from a citywide standpoint. If we're going to do preferential parking for the pickup and drop-off hours of the day, it is not what the intent of the preferential parking program is. And for that reason, that was not approved at the time.
Can I dialogue with you about
Sure,
this?
of course.
If you are going to change people's behavior, sometimes you have to do the hard thing and go with the preferential parking. That actually does create more of a deterrent for bad behavior and a reward for good behavior. You don't get a ticket if you follow the rules. I would say, having parked in the Glendale Community College area, it goes on way long past when you would think students are there. So I think it inconveniences people who do park or visit. So I don't think there's a really good solution to either one. But it seems to me that as part of a traffic control and calming and a pedestrian safety issue, it would be a good idea. So if under the circumstances you're saying there were no factors significant enough for this to become a preferential parking district, has that changed?
It hasn't changed. I mean, the same pickup drop-off occurs. There are parents who want to go inside the school. They have to meet with the teachers or whatnot. And during the pickup drop-off times, they are not able to do that, so they park on the residential street. You also have the same situation, in all fairness to the resident of Lowell Street, because on the east side of Lowell, you have more of an impact than anywhere else. So do we put in preferential parking on Lowell as well? Because there are some points that they park there, and they or they're queuing up during the pickup and the drop-off area. They're constantly parked there. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation where you have to share the pain. I mean,
well, but one is carries a different kind of traffic than the other. One is truly a neighborhood street, and the other is more of an arterial, even though you say it carries less than an arterial. So I don't see that. I don't buy that. To me, I think that, this is a good use that needs to be addressed, and I think that, I live up in the neighborhood and had the station fire for weeks and days and still have the deleterious material coming down, and so I understand the concerns about children playing outside in safe areas, and when you hold them up, they're like three cats up to no good. But what happens is that you have a neighborhood that is impacted too. I think there has to be a balance here of needs, and if it starts a precedent, I think that maybe we have too many people who believe that cars are the only way. They wait till the very last minute. They're in a hurry. The parents are just as bad as the children, and there is no consequence to their action. Although I think the school has tried very hard. So I see that if the city thinks it's not a viable alternative to put in a preferential parking zone here, I have a very hard time with coming up with, I think it's a really good addition to the school. That's what I am coming from there.
So that I clarify, I explained the position of the TPC when they looked at this particular on Bella when the petition was in, and looking at it as a whole. We're setting a precedent, seeing what that would do, because then every school is going to want to have that same condition. Then from a practical standpoint, you're really going to create more problems in terms of pickup and drop-off in front of schools that are all in residential areas on Balboa, R.D. White, Columbus. All of these schools will have the same problem, and just by restricting parking, you're not going to be forcing parents just to carpool on Vanpool, do other things, or ride their bike. It's just
But
from a
maybe
practical
you'll have people really prefer to take the shuttle because they're not going to want to sit in that queue because they can't park over there and get a ticket. So I don't know.
Ideally-
I think it's an interesting conversation we're having here.
Absolutely, and we've had this
It's a
many times.
convenience. Yes, I'm sure. But now there's a gymnasium in the decision-making process here that I think may tip it one way or the other.
I provide you my comments, but
I appreciate
it is obviously it's a balancing act, and what would be the best way to, if you have a project, how do you deal with the consequences of that project? So I understand your position. Thank you. Anything else?
I don't think so. Again, commissioners, anything for staff, the appellant, speakers? Thanks, General. You know, we can always reopen the hearing, but is there anything at this moment? All right, we'll close the public hearing. We'll enter deliberations. I'd like to fire the first shots at making sense of this all.
I think it's exceptionally frustrating living near any school, and I don't think, and I can't imagine how frustrating it is for the neighbors to be right next to the school. I know many schools are like this. I don't think it's an exception that for this particular school, even though most of the people are from outside of the immediate area. I think you'll see every school have people drive and commute and drop and pick up students at any school in the city. So I don't think it's an exception to this school in particular. And it is a chaotic situation, and it is really frustrating for neighbors at all these schools, as been evidenced throughout as everybody has talked about today. For me, I think what I'm trying to figure out and what I've been really focusing on is what's before us, and what's before us is really the height issue and the variance for the building expansion. And I know it's not increasing the parking, but I can't find any reason how this is going to be intensifying. The building of the gym is going to be intensifying the existing problem of the transportation and the parking issues that they currently have. They already have those problems, and what this gym is building is not going to be adding additional students and is not going to be adding additional staff. I would be concerned about maybe the usage at night, and I am happy that that language is more specific and is actually a condition to prevent the amount of events that are allowed at nighttime, because the only way I can see it being more intensified is at nighttime, and as long as we have a condition for that, I would be happy for that. I would be in favor of this for those reasons, just because I can't find the reason how this building of the gym will intensify the existing problems, and it's hard for me to find that reason. I would be in favor of finding out a solution for the transportation and parking plan, as far as creating something like that as part of a condition for the events in the future. So there is more thought put into this as like there hasn't been already. But more so, I guess, to create an actual plan that they can follow for future events, so the residents can feel more comfortable about, and the school does, and the community at large, and especially that everybody knows not only what's happening in the front on Lowell Street, but on 2nd Street. I think there's some concern that, the possibility of that driveway being used for other events, and I think having a community plan like that and a transportation plan in place for all future events would help mitigate any problems like that. And I think actually, if there's anything really good coming out of this for parking related things, that would be a very positive thing that would come out of it. So for those reasons, I would be in favor of the variance with those conditions that I mentioned.
All right, thank you very much.
I will go. My comments. I have a little different approach and a little different look about the issues relating to this case. Although I personally feel that the parking, the drop-off, parking in the neighborhoods, and the impact there are extremely important. And I know they're horrible to manage. I had 2 kids go through public schools and was on the parent committees for many years, for 6 years, trying to figure those things out, and we never resolve them to everybody's satisfaction. But I look at it from a larger perspective. Everything that I read in the package and the input I had tonight, we received, talks about what the usage is, and that because it is being used as a school, certain things should be allowed or certain conditions should be met. My personal take is that it became a school in a neighborhood that was growing many years ago, 50 years ago. It was intended as an elementary school. As I understand it, gymnasiums are not a consistent part of Glendale Unified School District's plan for elementary schools. I don't think that a gymnasium was intended for this property at any time. I do have some real concerns, as I stated, about the traffic. The police mentioned them very clearly in the documentation about traffic being backed up for several blocks, neighborhood services, parking concerns, which were reiterated by the local residents. I personally have experienced these problems. I have friends that live in the area, and I remember these same problems being there and the concern being there many years ago. I've experienced personally driving up that street and people not only backing up parking, but double parking in the middle of the traffic lanes. Not today, not yesterday. This was years ago, and it's still occurring. That troubles me. Especially when you look at the local schools where children are being killed and traffic accidents are occurring on a regular basis. The school was never planned or anticipated to be a junior high, and I think some of the need for the gym comes about because of having those additional classes, but that wasn't the original intent of this school. I think because a school exceeds the floor area ratio in other zoning, it doesn't mean that we should perpetuate the violations and increase them. I see a pattern of continued growth, continued variances, and this could increase and will add to and could exacerbate current problems and may add others. Allowing variances does not in itself give justification for adding further violations or variances, i.e. the gym or the height or parking less parking. It seems pretty obvious to me that, as happens in many schools, although there is parking, the parking is not being used for numerous reasons, the most of which it's inconvenient to get back to the park and drop your kids off and then get back out. I personally have seen people making left-hand turns out of the driveway, which is illegal. And when they make the turns out, it's just a horrible situation. People turn out, they block the traffic even more. So I think my main position on this is that I don't think the school is intended to continue to grow and expand. And I think everybody that started, when the school started, I think that everybody understood that. I think that was made clear that any changes need to be addressed by the Planning Commission, and that's what we're doing here. And I think it compounds it in my mind when I consider the fact that almost the same parking drop-off issues are there after so many years. I appreciate the plan that's being discussed by the one person, and I think that's a great idea, and I think it needs to happen. And maybe if that did happen, and there was significant impact on that area, I might have a different look at it. But I'm really coming from the fact that I'm not sure that we need to continue to expand that site. So that's my.
Right. Ms. Landergan.
Well, I did a whole lot of extra research on this because I really think that good site planning and children and of all ages being able to play outside and have use of facilities is an important part of our growing up. But I also feel that I looked through the past determinations, and I looked at this determination, and the concern I have is that we have continually benefited the school to the disadvantage of the neighborhood. And each variance intensifies that impact on the neighborhood without any mitigation. So to me, I don't see the mitigating factor there. And until I do, I have a very hard time, as much as I really believe that it would be fine to have a gymnasium. I think it's a great addition. I think it's important for kids to be able to play inside. I work outside a lot, and some things are not healthy. Believe it or not, as a landscape architect, I'm allergic to a lot of things. So I know how hard it is to be outside and how hard it is for kids. But until I see a mitigating response to the existing traffic instead of what is proposed here, I can't support adding any more uses to the school. As much as I think they're important, if I heard that the traffic preferential plan was taken care of, that there was something happening that was positive in the neighborhood for this, I could buy it. But right now, I don't see that, and for me, I just can't approve something that continues to serve the school to the detriment of the neighborhood. I don't see number 3 of the findings being met or substantiated. So those are, and I have tried to see something else, and I've looked at it, but to me, I just feel that finding has not been made. And until that finding is made, I don't think I could vote for this and will not vote for this.
I actually appreciate you drawing our attention to the findings. I think that it would be pretty easy, well, easy is relative, but it would be relatively easy to be able to work through A and B because of the specifics of the property. And I do think that you're kind of hitting on what the issue is. It's all about the public welfare and the adjacent property owners. And when we started this hearing, I thought to myself, okay, how do we balance the rights of the property owner to utilize his property to its full and best benefit, as long as it's not hurting anyone else? And there's a couple things going on there. There's a 35-foot high building that staff thought would be great just to make it work in case, but we were already hearing from the applicant, hey, we're fine with 30 feet. So that, to me, is a way of mitigating a portion of what's in front of us, the 35-foot versus the 30. They've said 30 will work for them. Great. To me, that kind of comes off the table. The other thing I thought of, okay, now we have an opportunity where we've got two things in front of us. We've got an area that has problems. Now, some of these problems can be fixed. Some of these problems, are just going to continue, and they just require just a lot of effort every year as new parents get on, come to the schools and new people move into neighborhoods and things like that. But I thought, okay, one of the nice things about having something is what can we do as a board to put in conditions or to look for solutions that would help prevent, potential, to fix or mitigate the problems at hand. The other thing that concerns me and that I want to look at is, would this building intensify a bad situation? I walk backwards a little bit in time. To me, the school changing from first through sixth or K through six, whatever it was, sixth grade, and going to eighth grade, I don't think that in and of itself affected the parking problem. If you're going to have a 500 student school, it doesn't matter what grade they're in, you still have 500 students getting to the school. So that in and of itself, not a big deal. The question is, what else does that trigger? And I think we're all hitting it. A lot of the time, 7th, 8th grade, junior high triggers gyms, things like that. So now the question is, okay, how do we put in this building, and what kind of conditions, what kind of solutions can we find that allows the school to put in this gym and it doesn't affect the people, in the community? And that's what worries me. And I can come up with a lot of conditions, ways to control it, ways to lessen the impact. I think visually, the fact that it's at 30 feet, that's within their rights, it's within their setbacks.
Actually, let me just clarify that.
Yes.
They will still need a variance for 30 feet.
Oh,
25.
They will. It's 25 feet is the limit.
Thank you very much.
So,
I appreciate you reminding me of that. Very good. Well, 30 feet would be mitigating toward it. Thank you. And I'm still not satisfied with how that fits into the community, frankly, at the 30 feet. I thought I was off on my memory of the variances. We can do a lot of things to condition what's going on with the school that can potentially help the neighborhood. And I'm going to run through them just really quickly. These were just thoughts that I had. The one, they've got this daycare thing, for lack of a better phrase. When my kid was going through school, after-school program, right. It's not daycare. When my son was going to school, they called it Adventure Club. That made it so much better for them. And they had adventures like sitting around waiting for their parents to pick them up. But that's happening. There's a need there. I mean, people work. But we could limit it to a certain number of people so that the traffic impact doesn't keep extending out past the regular school hours and become just overwhelming. I thought about during construction, putting in some of those conditions that we frequently do in terms of the hours that the construction would affect the neighborhood, and making sure they wouldn't work on a Saturday and not working after 6 p.m. as opposed to the regular rules. I thought of making sure that there would be a construction parking plan for both the construction workers and the teachers that would be submitted, where the school would have to, review it with the city, and they'd have to get approval on, again, how during the construction we're not impacting the neighborhood. Again, that's a relatively short period of time. That's probably 8 months worth of construction. But nonetheless, how do we not impact the neighborhood? I thought about conditioning the hours of use of the gym. For example, making sure that the gym would not be used on Sundays, that the gym would not be used except for some of the later things that they're already doing, a limited, kind of like what the Rose Bowl does. You can't have activities more than X number of times a year. But basically, the gym can't be used after 6 p.m. except for those special events, 2 or 3 sport events, the open houses, and so on. I thought about conditioning on the landscaping to just really make sure that we find a way to lessen the impact of the building. Let's see, what else? Again, the biggest thing to me was, if the gym gets put up, how do we make sure the neighborhood doesn't get hurt? I kind of gave up trying to find a way to fix what the existing problems are. I mean, they're battling it. They battled it for years. They're going to continue battling it, and that doesn't matter whether there's going to be a gym there or not. The question is, what do we do if the gym goes in to mitigate it? I can find a lot of conditions that we could put in that would work to do that. But unless there's a change of heart, unless there's an opening on the part of at least two of the commissioners, I can count. And at 2-2, the variance fails. So unless some of the things I've brought up opens a different sense or different perspective on Mr. Sheets or Ms. Landrigan, I'm kind of wasting my time in terms of trying to search for conditions. And so I'll just.
I mean, just to add to that would be the transportation plan and the parking plan for each event that we would add as a condition to.
Yeah, the parking plan. I know before he left, Mr. Lee wanted to make sure that the plans the applicant submitted for temporary parking on the playground for the 100 cars was a part of the conditions. So that was one of the things he worked.
Well, no, I meant what Mr. Kiesel and Mr. Hagani had mentioned as far as creating a transportation plan for each event would go ways to help mitigate any after-school events.
I mean, I totally appreciate each of the individual decisions that we're making, and but this is this is discussion. So if there's something that I brought up that opens it, please share it. If it's not resonating, we can move on.
Well, for me, from my standpoint, I feel pretty much the same. I don't see anything or hear anything that. I mean, the ideas are good, and these are all items or thoughts that have probably come up before. And I do see a change. I mean, it's not enough to make me think that my concerns are going to be addressed, and I don't see that it's going to influence me in that direction.
All right. Ms. Landrigan, anything to add?
Well, I'd like to say that I thought it was a good try, but I still don't.
That's not a try.
I thought it was creative, but to me, I still really feel that C can't be met even within those changes, and I wonder where you reach the point that it's deleterious, and to the community to just continue packing it in there. And I know it's a large site, and I looked at, the school criteria for sites and how much play area you need and what you need, and, for public schools, and it's a unique situation, and I understand that you don't want to start a precedent in school zones of having preferential parking. But, I mean, you pay for that. Individuals pay for it, and it is, and I've lived in preferential zones, and I think it works. And if it works, then I think that you don't intensify that impact. And right now, I think anything you add does intensify that impact. And so, I mean, I have the hardest time when I read the staff report, and it says on page 7, these extra activities are unlikely to generate anywhere near as many car trips as does the normal daily arrival and departure of students. Well, that's something time would write, It's a mixed bag for a variety of reasons. There's no substance to that. So to me, I have a very hard time until I see, and I think it's a need. I think it's an important thing to add, but I also think that at the moment it's shoehorning something in there under the circumstances that do not meet finding number C, and I think all 4 findings have to be met. To me, that's the litmus test.
You would want to see the preferential parking in place before we consider this item? Is that what, in other words?
If I saw it in place, I would be voting for this.
Yeah.
But I don't see the neighborhood's concerns through every single variance that has happened here being addressed. So I just think that it's being continued over and over again. And I know that that's not part of land use zoning. It's a byproduct of land use zoning that's done badly. That's all I can say.
I'm reopening the public hearing for Mr. Hagani to weigh in on something.
Thank you, and I think Ms. Landrigan actually gave me the opening line. Given that the preferential parking is not within your jurisdiction, we cannot make a recommendation as to making that a condition. However, it is completely within your jurisdiction to make a recommendation or to urge the traffic and transportation staff to take that issue before their commission for reconsideration. That, if that is going to make a difference, that is something you could do. You could urge staff to do that, and you could urge your staff to urge their staff to do that.
Go ahead.
And we know the
I don't
city's
know what you can possibly add, but go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think if overall, I mean, as far as the entire project, if that is the only issue that you are dealing with, just the preferential parking, if that is a make or break deal, and I'm not recommending you approve the project or not approve the project, but if that is the only thing, we can work with the planning staff to put in some form of a condition, because if this item goes to the city council, regardless of the commission's responsibilities in terms of implementing preferential parking, a council can approve that we do put in preferential parking regardless in that particular area, given those circumstances, given those conditions. It's just that I was trying to explain to you that originally when this issue came up, we were looking at all the different schools in the city, and they all have the similar problem. And setting a precedent of going into all those neighborhoods and creating a major problem by putting restrictions for parking, it will really impact.
The difference is we're talking about adding a facility.
I understand that, and I understand. And under that, it's something that we will certainly look into it and find out the way to deal with it in terms of the current preferential parking requirements. If it takes a city council action to add something to the code, which we had to do it for the Glendale Community College. For the college, we had to create specific, because this college was expanding, so they're adding facilities. Then we put requirements that we enact a new provision to the preferential parking to make it a larger district parking, so that the college can function and the residents will not be impacted as a result of that. So I just want to make sure that if it is something that the commission wants to put as part of the approval of this project, it's something we have to deal with it from the code standpoint. We will go work with planning department, TPC, if it's necessary to deal with that.
Do you have something specific for the speaker? Go ahead.
I would just add my take on all of this. That wouldn't be the only item for me, but the other part that comes with this type of a stipulation is, can it be enforced? And the real issue we're having now about just that parking issue, and I think it's larger, is it can't be enforced. And so I'm not sure that it would make a change. That it would satisfactorily correct the problem.
The preferential parking, which is around the Glendale Community College, it is getting enforced, but it is not regular. So we cannot tell you that the police department is going to be able to enforce every single one of them. I'm just being very open to that.
Right.
But we do have preferential parking throughout the city. It is a deterrent when you see the sign that says you're not allowed to. And obviously with the residents who will see the violation, they call the police department. On a regular basis, police will, on a not regular basis, on an as need basis, they will go out there and enforce, write some tickets. People who get tickets will not be parking on the street at that time of the day, or throughout the day, and so on. So it is enforceable. It will not be on an ongoing basis because of the entire city has similar parking requirements. But it is possible to do it.
Thank you. I'm going to have Mr. Khan come up. It appears, Mr. Khan, that unless something changes in the next few minutes, we have a choice as a commission, and you actually, I'm going to give you an option as an applicant. At 2-2, your variance fails. That gives you the opportunity at that point, if you so determine or decide, to appeal to council.
That's correct.
The other path that we can do is to continue this, probably not to date certain. I think there's probably some effort that needs to be done, but to continue this case, since there seemed to be at least some sentiment on the part of at least one commissioner, if not potentially a missing commissioner or whatever, that if there are ways for your group to work through the issues and the concerns you've heard from the commission as it relates to finding C, which is the material detriment to the public welfare, if you think that you can develop a series of arguments that might change the opinions of the commission, then I would ask our commissioners if they would like to continue it. Otherwise, since that'll take some time, you may want to go a different path and just say, please, if you're going to vote it down so we can go to council.
Chairman Kane, thank you for the option. We would choose the latter. Go ahead and vote it down, and we would appeal it to City Council.
Is it very good?
That's our preference.
I wanted to give you an option on that.
Thank you.
We'll reclose public hearing. I'm not sure there's much left to deliberate. At this point, I will ask someone to make a motion. I'm sorry. We still have to recognize the negative, not the negative deck. Yeah, it is a negative deck.
Not if you're.
Not if it's defeated.
Here's
If we're going to defeat it, we don't have to?
Well, if you're going to approve the project, you're going to have to approve the mitigated neg deck. And actually, the reso says neg deck. It should be a mitigated negative declaration. Somebody's going to have to make a motion to deny it or approve it. And both. It sounds like both of those motions would actually fail. So, as weird as it sounds, I recommend you adopt the mitigated neg deck only because in order to make a motion to approve it, project, you're going to have to approve that first. Normally, if the project was being denied, I would just say don't approve the neg deck. But because someone actually is going to have to make a motion to approve the project.
I'm sorry. Somebody has to make a motion to approve the project so it gets denied?
Yes.
Or a motion
Well, because the motion
deny
to
it.
approve the project fail on a 2-2.
Both will fail.
Can you second it?
Gavel's
But you would still, before you could take that motion, you'd have to approve the environmental document.
Before you make a motion to approve or deny the project, you have to take action on the environmental.
Oh.
That's
Well, yeah, but technically, to move to deny it, if the full commission was here, you wouldn't need to do the environmental. So my suggestion is just to approve the environmental, so you can move forward on the action.
So we can move forward to the next one. Right.
So it will fail because of, so it's not going to be denied, it will fail because of a lack of a majority vote.
Correct.
So it's not going to be denied or approved, it'll fail.
It'll fail. If someone,
And
it
so
depends
can-
who moves first.
And if it's
someone
failed,
moves
it
to deny
can be appealed to either the full committee, or does it come back to full committee, or does it then go to council if it fails on a?
I think we need to
split vote?
deny.
Well, that motion will fail too, unless one of you changes your mind. But if someone moves to deny it, if it's a 2-2, that motion fails as well. What you can do is you can actually make both motions. Have a motion to
Just
approve
formality.
and have that deny it, and then make a motion to deny. That'll fail also, assuming the 2-2 stays, and then those decisions can be appealed to the city council.
How many years have I done
And
this?
it's even though
we get these.
And
So are
even
we
though-
using this?
I should also say, even though Mr. Khan requested that it be denied outright, it's ultimately up to the commission to decide whether or not you'd like to continue it to allow Mr. Chang to
Is this for
Mr. Lee to
environmental?
participate.
No, it's just
Which one
this.
is that? Oh.
Okay. So the idea, I'm obtuse.
No.
So let-
Mr. Garcia says
My
that you
suggestion is
could.
to move the negative declaration,
Right.
Okay.
mitigate a negative declaration.
Right, and
Mitigated.
then we can
Mitigated.
move on and deal with the use variance. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion on the negative deck?
I move approval of the negative declaration for use variance case number PVAR 2010-023.
Second it.
two
the rest.
items on that procedurally. One,
And standard variance case number PVR 2010-028, right?
I would say take the environmental first.
Oh, I thought the negative deck was part of those.
No, just this one.
The mitigated negative declaration is, there's a separate resolution in your packet.
But it doesn't actually have it written out.
Okay, sorry.
This is the negative deck.
Adopting
Well, if you want to
a
move
negative
that.
declaration prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Act.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair.
So, do we want a second?
Second that.
We have motion support.
Before you move, I just two quick amendments to the resolution. One is to change it to mitigated negative declaration wherever it says negative declaration, and then two, it should also be it should also implement the mitigation monitoring program as part of it. It doesn't specifically say that in the resolution, and it probably should. So just if you make the maker of the motion will accept those two amendments.
I take that friendly amendment and add it to my motion.
Second it.
Motion support. Please call roll.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye. So on a vote of 3-1, we have adopted the mitigated negative deck. Now we can move on to a motion for the use variance.
So I'll go. You want?
Sure.
I'll move that upon review and consideration of all materials and exhibits of current record relative to the use variance case number PVAR 2010-023 and standards variance case number PVAR 2010-028 located at 4444 Lowell Avenue, and after having conducted a hearing on the said matter, that the Planning Commission hereby denies said use variance case number PVAR 2010-23 and the standards variance case number PVAR 2010-28 in accordance with the findings set below, essentially not meeting finding C.
We have a motion
Second.
and support. Call roll, please.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. On a vote of 3-1, PVAR 2010-028 has been denied. Anyone not happy with this decision has 15 days to appeal, and the forms are available in the planning department or at the building department. Thank you. All right. We will move on to the next agenda item, which is continuation. Well, let's go right back to the front. Approval of minutes from December 15th. Any comments or corrections?
I move that we accept the minutes from commission meeting Wednesday, December 15th.
Comments?
As presented.
Support?
I wasn't here. I can't approve.
Eric's going to have to second.
You need a
second.
Motion,
Sorry.
support, call roll, please.
All right, now, no.
Aye.
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 You abstained, right?
I abstain.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. On a vote of 3-0 with one abstention, the minutes of December 15th, 2010.
Could they leave the room and talk?
Right. We're going to move on to agenda item 8. Agenda item 9, which was a tentative parcel map GLN 1625. The location was 2246 through 2248 Raphael Terrace. My understanding is it's the applicant is asked to have it continued with no date.
Yeah, the applicants asked, we're asking that the item be taken off calendar since they do not have a date certain, and we want to make sure that we renotice it.
All right. And we need a motion to take off calendar?
Yes, please.
All right.
I move.
Go ahead.
We have a motion?
Second.
And support? Call roll.
Commissioner Landrigan.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheets.
Aye.
Commissioner Yasayan.
Aye.
Chairperson Kay.
Aye. On a vote of 4-0, tentative parcel map GLN 1625 has been removed from calendar. Planning Department updates.
And we just have a reminder that we do have a joint TPC Planning Commission meeting on Monday, January 24th, starting at 6 o'clock. And it's going to be held at the City Council chambers, not in this room. And the purpose is to look at the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. So just wanted
The
to
time again?
have a reminder. It's at 6 o'clock. I believe it's scheduled from 6 to 8:30, but we're not sure how long it'll last, but it's be a full presentation.
All right. How about for our next session?
In February, we have our next meeting, February 2nd. We have 3 items right now. One of them is an appeal, and then we have a large item, zoning code amendments that we're looking at. It's basically a housekeeping comprehensive amendment to the zoning code. And then we also have a wireless telecommunications facility. On the 16th of February, that would be the following meeting, we have one appeal, one use variance, and then also a consideration of recommendations for the Arts and Entertainment District. That would be zoning as well as standards.
Mr. Chair, I will not be at the next Planning Commission. My father's having surgery, so I will be with him.
All right. Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I had asked for, there were some classes available on the planning, through the planning, yes. APA, yeah, and they were available on CD, and I had asked if the planning department could purchase a couple of them because they had a really good discount. And I think they got 1 or 2 that's available, and then we can share the CD. And it has to do with planning commission and meeting managements and stuff like that. So it may be beneficial to us. So I think Laura has it there. So
We have a mastering meeting management that we did order, and so we can share this, and we'll also share with staff.
I should think that would have been handy to have given me at the beginning of the session. All right, great.
Practice.
that'll be a condition for our new chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great.
Congratulations,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.